session to order at 4 o'clock. It is the 12th of January. Happy 2021, everyone. Yeah. Hopefully this year will be better and easier than the last one. And we're going to begin with our grants, a virtual town grants reception that was previously filmed. So do we have Chris to roll this for us?
Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Terrific.
Thanks for joining us here today. While the town of Breckenridge is not required to support our nonprofits, we feel it is the right thing to do. This council feels strongly that we have been given much, and it is our duty to give back to the nonprofits of the community. Today, the town is honored to award $243,000 in cash grants for 2021. In addition to the grants we're about to award, the town also funds scholarships for Summit High seniors, as well as financially supports Breckenridge Creative Arts, Breckenridge Heritage Alliance, and our early learning centers and preschools. We also support a town-wide marketing effort through the Breckenridge Tourism Office.
Hey, thanks, Dick. In addition to all that, the town provides over $90,000 of in-kind services to the various nonprofit groups. And new this year, the 5 entities also kick in for Building Hope, FERC, and the Summit County Community Care Clinic, all part of our tobacco tax. And we've been doing this since 1986. So here are some of the worthy recipients.
Advocates for Victims of Assault, Bethany Immigration Services, Blue River Horse Center, the Blue River Watershed Group, Breckenridge Film Festival, Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center, CASA of the Continental Divide, the CMC Foundation, Colorado Learning Connections, Dillon Valley Elementary Parent Teacher Student Association, Education Foundation of the Summit, Father Dyer Food Pantry.
Thank you, town of Breckenridge.
Friends of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, Girl Scouts of Colorado, High Country Conservation, High Country Veterans Adventures, Mountain Dreamers.
Hello, it's Peter Balkin with Mountain Dreamers. Thank you for your support. And here to say thanks also is Karen Lozano with Summit High School Mountain Dreamers.
On behalf of the Mountain Dreamers and the Summit High Mountain Dreamers, I would like to give a big thank you to the town of Breck for their support to the Mountain Dreamers with a grant for 2021. I have finally been able to apply after 3 years, and I'm very happy. I've never been so happy.
Mountain Scholars, Mountaintop Children's Museum.
Thank you, Town Council and Town of Breckenridge, for our grant awards this year to the Mountaintop Exploratorio. What do we say, kids? Thank you!
National Repertory Orchestra, Smart Bellies, SOS Outreach, Summit County Mountain Mentors, Summit County Youth, Summit Musicians Relief Fund, the Summit Nordic Ski Club, Summit Prosperity Initiative, Summit Public Radio and TV, Inc., Team Breckenridge Sports Club, Team Summit Colorado, the Cycle Effect, the Peak School, Timberline Adult Day Services, and Youth Entity.
For these last 2 grants, they'll be funded through the Open Space Fund. I've had the pleasure of serving on the Breckenridge Open Space Advisory Commission, and I'm pleased to present the Colorado 14ers Initiative and the Friends of the Dillon Ranger District with these grants. Congratulations.
Oh, great job, guys.
That was
That
nice.
was awesome.
Yeah. Nicely done.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you, Aaron, for your piece in that. And thank you, Jeffrey and Dick, for the hard work of handing out grants. While it is easy to give away money, it is not easy to figure out who to give it to. So thanks to both of you for the extra time. And thanks to our nonprofits for all the hard work. Especially now with as Crazy as everything has been, those nonprofits have been such a lifeline to this community that it is more than any of us do for this community, what the nonprofits do. It's amazing, the outreach, it's amazing, the touch they have in this community. And, you know, and again, in a year like this, when people needed food and rent and just help, what an awesome group of people and community members run these nonprofits. And our little town would be nothing without every one of you. So thank you all, from horses to music to FERC and the Care Clinic and the 14er Initiative. I mean, all of you do such a remarkable job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So with that, we can, I like the virtual, and Jeffrey didn't have to shake anybody's hand.
No,
Yeah.
totally germ-free.
Rick, you're on mute, dude.
I just want to recognize the work that Peyton Rogers does on this. She coordinates this program on behalf of the town, and she's our staff person. And Peyton went a little extra in looking for a way to acknowledge and recognize our grants this year in a virtual format, and I think it turned out well. So,
Yeah, thanks, Peyton.
Thanks.
And also thank you to Brad, SCTV, and his crew for the video work.
And having to put up with Jeffrey yet again.
Some of his camera angles made me look wrinkled.
yeah, it was
your
totally
favorite.
the camera. Yeah.
All right, everyone. We have Planning Commission decisions for the 5th of January, 2021. Any questions, any call-ups? Nope. Okay. Move on to legislative review. Start with the Breckenridge Montessori lease for 2021. Second reading. Hi, Corey.
Hi, Mayor and Town Council. How are you?
Good.
So you have the ordinance and the lease. There was one change from the first reading to the second reading, which was the term date to change to July 31st, 2026 to be in line with the school's calendar.
All right. Any questions for staff about this one? No? All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
We have CB 44, second reading memo and ordinance.
I guess this is me. This ordinance, as well as a couple of other marketplace facilitator ordinances, come on tonight for second reading. You'll recall that Heather Pizzella did a very nice, thorough memo at the time of first reading on these ordinances. But these ordinances essentially implement a U.S. Supreme Court decision that allowed local governments to impose a tax requirement on entities that don't have a physical presence in the town, but yet have an economic connection to the town. After that decision was made by the court, there was a working group of the Municipal League Home Rule self-collecting municipalities who worked together on model ordinance. And the facilitator ordinances that you have in front of you tonight generally track the model ordinance that was done by that committee. There are no changes to this particular ordinance from first reading.
Any questions? Tim, will this cover 45, 46?
Yes, yes, sir.
And then on 47, the bold accommodations ordinance changes, that is a little bit
different.
Okay.
Yeah, that's different.
All right, go ahead.
Let me get there.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You're jumping ahead on you.
I'm so pushy.
I know. Everybody, this ordinance has a number of amendments to it related to the town's bolt ordinance. It expands or clarifies really the definition of a bedroom. It's intended to deal specifically with inspections and how the town is going to handle the issue of bedroom count under the Bolt ordinance. We've had some considerable discussions over the time about this issue. I think this ordinance is an improvement certainly over what we have in place already. And there are no amendments. I take that back. There's one amendment. The original ordinance that was adopted on first reading had a specific date that the ordinance was to become effective, except that the ordinance effective date was blank. This ordinance has one amendment to it in section 5 at the very end of the ordinance to simply provide that the ordinance will become effective as provided by the town charter, which is essentially 35 days after adoption on second reading. So Jeffrey will need to make sure that a motion reflects the version of this ordinance that's in the agenda packet.
You got that, Jeffrey?
Yeah. Are we talking about 46 or
7?
47? Okay.
All right, any questions, gang? No? All right. An ordinance to approve the ground lease for Alta Verde at McCain. This is first reading.
This is Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good,
Well, I
how
guess
are you?
everyone at once.
Cool.
The ground lease for Alta Verde, this is the first reading. And a lot of what's in this agreement and in the memo are things we had talked about in the original development management agreement and intent to ground lease. I'm just going to go over the quick, brief summary of what the memo stated around the terms of the ground lease. Ultimately, this ground lease is to give Alta Verde LLC, which is a subsidiary of Gorman, control of the land to Alta Verde for the term of the ground lease. And just a heads up for everyone on the call, Alta Verde, it's an 80 unit apartment building, or three buildings out at McCain, mix of 1 to 3 bedrooms, and they'll be rented at 60% AMI and below. The project goal is, of course, to be net zero. And we've been working with Gorman and company to make this all happen. So the ground lease length of time is, there's basically 2 periods. There's an original term of 75 years and a renewal term of another 75 years, which seems kind of crazy, but that is how ground leases work. They are very long. And the original rent, there's not really rent payments that are due necessarily, but there is original rent payments of $1,000 at the original term. And then if they decide to renew at the subsequent term, then it would be another $1,000. Just some terms that are in the general terms that are in this ground lease. It talks about, anything happening on the property being up to appropriate construction standards, and the property must be maintained and repaired and kept in good condition. It references our restricted covenant, which we'll be bringing to you in February, that will be on the land in perpetuity. And this is where we'll really outline those additional criteria, such as any employment restrictions and AMI restrictions. So that will come in a separate document that the ground lease will reference. Of course, there's the general just defaults and remedies that are in a contract. And then at the end, there's an exhibit for a memorandum of ground lease, and the memorandum of ground lease will be recorded. And the purpose of this is really to establish that there is a ground lease on the property. So if there's anyone goes to look at this property or pull title, then it will show up that, okay, there is a ground lease. This is ground lease property. So that's the intent of the ground lease, or the memorandum of ground lease. I kind of did an overview of some other things that are going on. We talked about that there's no really rent payments, but we do have some documents coming in the future, such as the loan agreement that we'll discuss the terms of the town of Breckenridge loan that we had agreed to in the development management agreement, and the grant money that's being loaned to the project from DOLA and from the community development block grant. So I kind of went over the general deal points. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have about the ground lease or the ordinance or anything like that.
All right, questions?
You know, it seems like in the second 75 years, it should be at least 1,050. I mean, $1,000 isn't going to be what it used to be in 75 years.
1,050.
I thought
Nicole, I think you already answered this, but the restrictive covenant is going to come later, and that's going to be where we talk about the percent of AMI.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so at that, like, there's nothing in here that says, or that would be necessary to put anything that apartments would be filled like at different AMIs if necessary. Is that something that we would do in the covenant? I know we have a little bit of a problem because of the DOLA grant, but.
So yeah, so it's kind of like a layered, because we're getting all this awesome money, we have kind of a layered restriction happening, right? We have the low-income housing tax restriction, credit restriction, and then we have a restriction from DOLA for the CDBG funds, which will expire even before the LIHTC one expires. And then we have ours that will be there in perpetuity. And for the 16 units that are not LIHTC or a CDBG, they'll be subject to our restrictive covenant. So in that covenant, we have the flexibility to revise it with the current ground lease tenant, whoever that is. Say we're having challenges with the AMIs or we need to go back and fix it. We've done amendments to covenants before in the past if there really are challenges with whatever we adopted. Now, because in 150 years, which is the years we're talking here, if they're like, okay, this isn't really working anymore, or even 50 years from now, there is an option for both parties to agree to change the terms of the restricted covenant. But for the purpose of right now, the goal is to make sure that they are serving 60% AMI and that those rents stay that way until we feel like it's appropriate to adjust them. But that would all be in the actual deed restriction itself, because that will restrict the use of the property ultimately.
Great, thank you.
And will we look at the deed restriction itself, or will that?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. That will likely be on the 23rd of February. It'll be in the form of a resolution. So we'll go through those terms. And a lot of it's going to reflect what was in the original development management agreement, which was the 60% AMI and the qualified occupant being someone who works 30 hours or more per week in Summit County. But we have a little bit of income testing and things like that we've added. So we'll get that on the 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Tim?
Eric, the form of the ground lease that's in front of the council this evening is going to change at second reading. We've already received some comments from one of the lenders that's involved in this transaction who is requiring amendments to the ground lease. So essentially what you have in front of you tonight is a placeholder for the final version that will come to you in 2 weeks. So I just want to give everybody a heads up. It is quite amazing the number of folks that are involved in this transaction at this point, between the town people and the Gorman people and their council and the lenders and the bond folks. It's interesting. So just a heads up, when we bring the ordinance to you and the lease for second reading, it will be marked so you can see the changes. But I want to give you a heads up, there are going to be some changes.
Okay, fair enough. I'm assuming you'll make sure they're all okay with the town.
Oh yeah.
I have Tim on standby right now.
All right, gang, any other questions for Nicole or Tim? All right, we will get to that one this evening.
Thank you.
We have, and that's it for legislative review. Manager's report. Mr. Manager?
Let's start off with our public projects update. The only item in there right now is your this update on the parking structure. I would like to give a brief update to the council on the gas leak situation that occurred over the weekend. We thought we had another odor of gas that was detected next door right before we started the meeting here at US Bank, but fire department has since left the scene and there was no measurable amount of gas detected there. So that does not appear to be a problem. So, you know, they're repairing that line, installing a new section of line, basically kind of from behind First Bank over to the corner behind the professional building or the edge of town, back rear of town hall parking. And we expect that it's closed off back there and it probably won't be done until Thursday at some point for that. But fairly minimal impact, but there certainly was some impact over the weekend that staff worked through. So,
Hey, Rick, were any businesses shut down, or was it only residential that lost power?
Well, luckily the three primary locations, First Bank, Town Hall, and the professional buildings, are not open and doing a lot on weekends, but there were some people, I believe, working in the professional building that had to be evacuated. And Shannon, wasn't there one situation where there was something residential because they offered lodging to somebody, but I don't know where that came from.
I think Excel said they had 15 or 17 residential properties that were impacted and they offered shelter to the ones they could get in touch with. Most of them weren't around and the ones they did contact declined any services.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as long as they were offered, then.
Was it somewhere they could work on it or was it actually under a building?
It's under, yeah. It's behind Town Hall, behind US Bank in that, you know, alley parking lot area.
Right. Thank you.
So it wasn't under a building, it was underground, but not under an actual structure?
Yes.
Yeah, they weren't sure for a while. They thought that it was potentially under US Bank, but they weren't sure. And at one point they thought it could have been under Park Avenue. So it just took them a little while to figure out where it was.
Cool. All right, other questions? Anything else on town projects, public projects, or P&T?
You know, Shannon Smith told me that the crane will be leaving the location behind Town Hall because they have put all of the Lego pieces together. So
wow,
basically what you see out there is what the final footprint will be, with the exception of the restrooms and the elevator stairwell towers, right, Shannon? That are tucked in the corners, but those are built with CMU block. And so we won't be, you know, having any large pieces to assemble. So that's kind of a milestone for us.
It's pretty amazing, actually, that it went as fast as it did. Nice job, Shannon. I saw you out there driving the crane.
Any other questions on any projects?
In the transit issue, there's just kind of your year-end report, and certainly it's, you know, what we've been seeing every month, so we know the numbers are going to be down considerably. There's been a bit of movement afoot lately through the Colorado Transit Association, CASTA, to try to reach out to the governor's office to increase the capacity on buses. And many organizations, some of the organizations are trying to show the comparison with airlines and obviously how people are seated in airlines and for much longer periods of time than, you know, the average resort ride is 15 minutes or less on a bus. Town of Avon wrote a letter to the state. You know, we have not written a letter. We certainly could, but I can tell you that the the CASTA Transit Association met with the governor's office yesterday and tried to make their argument. And at this time, the state is not ready to relax those standards. We've seen a little spike in the last week. They still want to get through any additional potential spikes, due to the holidays. This is a very, I think, just a cautious time for them right now, not knowing what next week might bring or what we still might see based on, holiday activity. And so there is not an appetite to increase that at this time. And the county also, feels that this is probably, we went from almost hitting 500 per 100,000 to back, then yesterday we were up almost to 650 per 100,000. That may be our spike. I don't know. The county doesn't feel now's the time to be loosening the standards either when it comes to that, but maybe a week from now or 2 weeks from now, who knows? So I don't know that it's worth our effort to write a letter. I think what needs to be said has been said, and I'm not sure that we're going to sway anybody's, change anybody's mind. And maybe you agree now's not the time to be putting more people on our buses anyways. I don't know. But it was a topic of discussion, and I just wanted to make sure and see if you had any strong feelings about us pushing harder to try to increase those ridership numbers right now. I mean, we're getting about 17 passengers. We're doing basically they're using the length of the bus, 50% of the length of the bus, 35-foot buses. So we're at about 17 passengers. If we were to go to 50% occupancy, which is what they're looking for, we probably would raise us to around, I believe, 25 or something. 24, 25. So it's not a huge increase, but certainly another 7 or 8 riders helps. We are leaving some people behind at some of our peak spots, and which is problematic, but it's happening at the county level too. And, especially, those routes along the yellow, probably where it happens the most. So.
Rick, how often is that happening where the buses are at capacity and we're turning away riders?
I'm looking to see who's on this call. James or Jennifer, anybody here?
Well, just to be clear, we had 73 cases over the weekend. I guess it's 9 cases today. So 82 cases. I mean, so it's not flattening out, but I would like to have Carol's question answered. I am curious about that.
Jennifer, Jen says daily. She just came on, so I'll let her get on here. But daily, we're leaving people behind. This time of year, we knew that would happen, right? So.
Is it skiers or is it like employees, or is it just depending on time of day?
Jen, can you make yourself visible? There you are.
Hello.
Had to take off my sticker there. So it's both. It's both skiers and workers, especially in the afternoon.
How often? I mean, is it regular
Daily.
or is it rarity that we have to pass people up, or is it something that happens pretty regularly?
She said daily before she cut out there.
It's pretty much every day. And if we have a chase, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
So pretty much daily, Jeffrey, we'll run a chase bus when we can to catch anybody we're leaving behind.
But when you say daily, is it like 1 time, 2 times a day, or is it more often than not? I don't think you can hide by staying still.
That's what you do when you're in the woods and an animal's going to attack.
I would say it's not all day. Sorry, some spotty internet. So Jeffrey, it's in the mornings and afternoons. It's not all day.
You know, the thing about it too is I know it is a burden for the guest. I think it's pretty tough on the drivers too, because they are almost like enforcers. So, you know, we're asking our drivers to tell people, sorry, and they're in a weird position too, being in the front of the bus. They cannot communicate really well with you. I don't know if any of you have ridden lately, but you know, you're pretty far away from them. They're behind a plexiglass screen. You can't really talk to them. So it is definitely a burden for them, the way this is happening.
I guess in my experience, though, they just don't stop at the stop. If they see that there are like 3 people and they know they can only take one, they just keep right on going. I think I'm worried about, well, I guess it just is what it is for a pandemic.
Here's the deal. I'm not sure we have a lot of options. Even if you said go run 3 more buses, we don't have drivers. So we can't put more buses out there to backfill. And, you know, right now we're not going to get any change from the state for the immediate time being. I think we are looking, I think there's a lot, it makes a lot of sense that, I mean, we're using great precautions to keep our buses clean, to have ventilation going. We've enhanced our buses to have air movement where possible. We're keeping windows open. I don't think it's certainly any riskier than airline flights, and you know, where people are doing that. But we will stay glued to the topic and watch for it and offer input where available through our state organization and also the county. The county's experiencing the same thing, and I think they'd like to see some additional increase in that also. And CAST, not CASTA, but CAST is also staying abreast of this because, you know, many of the resort communities have similar transit as we do. So
we could pull a hay wagon behind the bus. Be good for another 5 or 10 people.
You know, we hadn't thought about that, but that's being creative.
This is where the ideas come from, right here, this body.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions on P&T? Or buses? Or the hay wagon? All right. How about committee reports? Any questions on, oh no, I'm sorry.
New housing.
Housing and childcare.
So I got a couple of things we want to do. We're going to do a very quick update on our recent childcare meeting. Who's doing that? Nicole? No?
I think probably Corey would be better for childcare, or Kelly.
Go for it, Nicole.
I don't know what actually happened. I just thought we're doing housing first, so I'll get off here so I'm not confusing people.
Nice.
I don't think we had a recent childcare meeting to update on.
Well, I probably said childcare and I meant housing, so
Okay.
I threw everybody off. You guys you can bring that up later when you do my evaluation.
We will.
But I do have a question about childcare. Aren't you looking for new childcare advisory members soon?
Yes.
And if so,
we
when?
are. We will be posting it any day now in the Summit Daily.
Okay. And how many are you looking for?
Just one.
Okay, just one. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Nothing else on childcare. Housing. We had a housing committee meeting today. There were also in your packet was minutes from the last meeting we had.
Yes. The last meeting was really brief. It was just a question about the Stan Miller phasing of the development. If you guys have any questions about that, I'm available for those. You know, Rick and I did want to bring up another topic, if you don't have any questions on those, about Alta Verde.
I'll take that one. Are you ready to go there? Okay.
Yeah, and Kimball Kringle's here too. You might see her square, but she's here to also discuss it. But I'll let Rick take the reins.
Dennis, you have a question?
I do. On Miller Braddock, it talked about tract E and no longer, they were for sale instead of rental housing. What changed there?
Well, it's not necessarily a permanent change. It was more kind of just shifting where the uses went. There was concern from the committee, and I think, Dick, you did a good job kind of describing your concerns about that tract. For that tract being a for sale, more like small apartment style for sale, condo style versus being the for rent component. It was more just conceptual. It wasn't necessarily what was being asked for that change. But yeah, that was a new kind of thing that we had seen. And the overall master plan still was in accordance with the requirements with that proposal, but there was still a little concern about putting for sale on that tract and too much of have housing on that tract since it's in an odd location.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The input we gave Tom was, a little too much, well, quite a bit too much going on there. And we wanted to spread it out some. So
how did he take it?
Very professionally.
Yeah, he always does.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
So we had a request made to the town to do what's known as be a conduit issuer. So when you look at the organization that issues bonds, so we went out and we got we did COP type bonds for the parking structure and so Gorman will be looking to bond for the financing of the of Alta Verde, and there's a mechanism that is apparently fairly commonly used where you partner with a government type agency, a local housing authority, a municipality or county, to be what's called a conduit issuer on those bonds. This is they're looking through Stiefel, where we did our parking structure. So we have, a long history with them. We've been Tim Berry and I have been in communication with our bond attorney, Dee Weiser, who told us that there is no downside to the town being a conduit issuer for Alta Verde. And even though we would be a conduit issuer, we have no financial obligation to repay those bonds. And also that it really wouldn't hurt our credit rating or anything like that by being involved in it. We do think that it makes more sense to do it through the Town of Breckenridge Housing Authority, which is the other hat that you all wear. It's a one-step resolution process versus an ordinance process if it's done through the town by doing it that way. But if you're supportive of that, then we would be bringing that back to you in the form of a resolution to enter into this arrangement, I believe at some point in February. I did ask Kimball to be on only because I think that she probably has quite a bit of experience in working with other entities in doing this type of structure. This is a first for us in the town in doing it, but there's obviously a big advantage to Gorman, and I assume there makes it eligible for a much better rate, which helps make our project more successful. But is that right, Kimball?
Yes. Hi, everybody. That's exactly right. Hi, is that we do get a much lower rate by using a taxable bond structure. And so we just closed on a deal in Steamboat Springs in September using the same structure with this same team, so Stiefel, and by issuing taxable bonds that are collateralized by our construction loan, we receive a AAA rating from Moody's on those bonds, which means we can sell them on the market to a very high demand, which means a very low interest rate, which helps the project because of that lower interest rate. Other folks that could provide the bonds under this scenario would be Chaffa. And that's certainly an option for us to see, but this is a more affordable route for the project, is going through the Housing Authority.
Great.
You may recall as part of this deal that we're doing a roughly $4 million loan to the project that is payable back to us at some point. I don't remember when, but our loan would be subordinate to these bonds, meaning that they get paid before we do. But I don't think, and Kimball, also I'd like you to answer, I don't believe that whether we do the, let me ask you this, whether we are this conduit issuer of the bonds, is that going to have any impact on when our loan would be repaid?
No,
okay,
it doesn't. If it's you or if it's somebody like Chaffa, your loan position remains the same. Since this is collateralized by the construction note is ahead of any other sub debt to be paid off first.
Are you at a daycare center?
Is someone storming our Capitol?
Does it sound like it? Yes. I don't know what's happening upstairs, and I might just hunker down here all night.
I noticed she keeps hitting that mute button really fast.
Right away.
I do. Trying to be professional here.
Believe me, we don't mind. Any questions for Kimball Krangle? All right.
Are you all supportive? If you give me a thumbs up, we'll do everything we need to do behind the scenes, and we'll bring this to you for official action in the future.
Perfect.
All right, everybody good? All right.
All right.
There you go, Kimball.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Go back to that. Go back to the birthday party. Or
I'm going to stay down here and do some more work. Thanks.
That's awesome. Anything else, Rick, on the housing?
Oh, I don't think so. No, the committee did give us the go ahead. We're gonna put in an offer on a unit up Baldy, but I'll let you know more about it once we do that. So
okay.
Yep.
Good enough. Then committee reports. There was a police advisory and a communications report. Any questions on those? Nope. All right. Events committee memo. Anything to add, Shannon?
The only thing I'll point out is that you may have seen in there a section on Build Back Better. And that's that idea of this is a great opportunity to look at what we've done in the past and see how we can improve going forward and exactly what events should look like going forward. That theme of Build Back Better will happen, and conversations will happen in the events committee as well as the resiliency committee, and I believe the BTO board of directors will also be talking about it. So it's a theme you may see in different areas, but it's, that's kind of the concept. And Carol, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, that's it. Just that Build Back Better will continue to be a discussion in the events committee.
I would like to see what the temperature of the council is while you guys are talking about this. I mean, it's my personal belief. What I don't want to do is just, because of where we've been, just jump into doing a bunch of stuff next year. When the pandemic's over, I don't think that Build Back Better for this community is going to mean an event every weekend again. I think this is a good reset for our community. I think it's a good way for us to look at it and say, okay, what are the events that are sort of legacy events for the town? And what are events that honestly, we're just filling space for no reason. Town's busy anyway. There are plenty of weekends that we seem to do stuff that we don't really need it. You know, how does the council feel about sending that message that do not try to right the economy in one summer or in, you know, in 1 year?
I was going to say the same thing. I agree with that. Our trailheads and our trails were much busier this summer because of the pandemic. And though say in a miracle world, the pandemic is gone and it's back to health square one. I do think the interest that was garnered by all these folks using our trail system is going to continue, even if they don't have to, because they choose to. And that in itself, I think, is reason to just to look at what we do as far as events and see how many we want to have, especially on our trails and also in the town, just regular events that aren't on open space, but just in the community. So yeah, I'm in agreement.
Eric, I'd like to see have a little broader discussion and maybe have Lucy and Todd Rankin join us. You know, probably Helen as well, because one of my issues is all the liquor licenses that we're giving to events that are on private property, which that's the only teeth that we really have in this subject is the liquor license, you know, if the event's on private property or really. So, you know, a lot of the events that I think are problematic are on private property. So to me, I agree where we're going fundamentally, but I think it might warrant a discussion at a work session and to give a little more specific input to the group. And you know, I think it'd be helpful to have Lucy work with us on that as well.
I completely agree. I feel like even with that's a great point, Dick, even with our philosophy about liquor licenses and having events and having so many events, I feel like so much of it originally was to attract people to Breckenridge. And I think now would be a good time to see if we need the events. I mean, I think that there's a certain bit of animation, which is great, but we don't have, I don't know. I would love to see if we need to attract people to Breckenridge in the same way that we used to. I mean, I still get the, you know, the out-of-state visitor coming for a full week, but they're not necessarily coming for an event for a full week. So I think it's something to look at for sure.
Anyone else? Kelly.
So I am so glad we're having this conversation, because Dick and I have definitely been having this conversation at the BCA level and just trying to help them understand that that we really want to have a rebuilding year that looks more like, let's start from scratch and get a strategic plan for every single thing that we're doing. You know, like, why are we doing this particular event or this particular animation, and really build from square one rather than just saying like, oh, well, we've always done this, so we're doing these 5, you know. And I think even like with what Jeffrey was saying, and I feel like we're sort of going to be doing a recreation and trails management plan. I mean, I think it would be a really good opportunity for us to look at all the things that people come here for and make sure that we are taking care of, you know, what's most precious to us and why people are coming here. And I definitely think that is like trailheads, but it's also people and, you know, open space. I would love to kind of take a holistic view of this whole discussion.
So would the majority of you support trying to schedule a work session item sooner than later?
Yes.
And I like that idea of Lucy and Todd both being there. I also like the idea that when this is all said and done and the pandemic is officially over, that we do look at a community-wide celebration. We missed our town party, but obviously that's a ways down the road.
Those two items did come up at the events committee. Dennis, some sort of celebration at the end of this, but also at a larger strategic level. I think Lucy was the one that brought it up, that this has been long enough of a pause between events that nothing's expected, that this truly is a clean slate. And I think it's absolutely worth continuing those conversations.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, everyone. So Rick, if we could get that on the schedule at some point. There's no real rush. This thing's not over yet, so.
I had another.
Me it is. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Sorry, Eric. I didn't mean to cut you off. Another comment question. I saw, and this could be part of the COVID discussion just as easily too, about the proof of vaccination. Eric, I know you mentioned at one point that it's possible that people might need to prove or have a vaccine, or once people have a vaccination, they don't need to wear a mask anymore. And we can talk about this during the COVID section. I'd be happy with that, but I'd love to hear if we have any information on that, about once you have a vaccine, if you don't need to wear a mask anymore, and what proof of vaccine looks like and that sort of thing.
We actually talked about that at Mayors and Managers on Thursday, whenever. Yeah, yesterday. The last Thursday we talked about that. I mean, right now the science is saying that vaccine or no, you still need to wear a mask because you can still be carrying and you can still be shedding the virus. So that will be that will be part of that difficult discussion, I think, that we have. And how do we have that argument with our customers as they come to town and say, I don't need a damn mask. I got a vaccine. Here's my card. And it's going to be like the argument that I have at the door currently with people whose pets need to come and sit in a high chair. So that's just Dick knows. Dick goes through the same thing. So anyway, we'll definitely talk about that at the COVID part. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Anything else on events? Carol or Shannon, anything else to add? We good with having a broader ranging conversation about where we go from here? Great. Planning matters. Pre-annexation for Entrada agreement. Tim, I'm assuming this is you.
Well, this is me and a number of other folks. Helen, Mark is here. We should also be joined by Felice Huntley, her client Marty Getz, and Christy Matthews-Lydell, who is the planner that Marty has hired.
We're pretty early, so if we wanted to come back once they sign on, unless they're setting out in the...
They may be in as attendees. They were sent attendee invites and not panelists.
Okay, so...
So Christy's in there if Chris can bring her over. Felice is in there. Chris could bring her over as well. Yeah. Was that it, Tim? Was there someone else?
Mr. Getz also, the developer. Marty Getz.
I don't see him in the queue. Oh, no, there he is. He's also in there. Chris can bring him over as well.
While we're doing that, let me tee this up for the council. The property that's the subject of this pre-annexation agreement was actually annexed to the town a number of years ago. I don't know if anybody on the council recalls that. But the council annexed the property and immediately de-annexed it because the developer didn't do some things that were promised. So this is the property located at Highway 9 and County Road 450. It's very visible, as the name Entrada would suggest. This pre-annexation agreement is unique in my experience with the town. We don't always do a true annexation agreement. Sometimes we do because the developer wants clarification on things like zoning, allowed uses, those type of things. But here, Mr. Getz has got approval in the county to build a PUD on the property, and he's in the process of getting ready to do that. And as part of that getting ready to do that, the town entered into an out-of-town water service agreement with Mr. Getz several years ago. He's not yet taken the water, because there are no improvements really on the property. But one of the provisions that is in the annexation agreement is an obligation on the part of Mr. Getz to file an application to annex the property when the development is essentially completed. When Felice and I started talking about this, oh gosh, I guess almost a year ago now, there were certain issues related to the ultimate development of the property in the town, or the ultimate use of the property in the town, that Felice and her client felt like they needed some clarification on. So I came up with the concept of what I have called a pre-annexation agreement. It will be, if it's approved, it will be step one in essentially a 5-step process. Step one would be the pre-annexation agreement. Step two, after the project has been built out, which is a couple of years down the road still. But step two would then be Mr. Getz filing an annexation petition with the town as in accordance with the requirements of the out-of-town water service agreement. Step three would be a separate true annexation agreement that would be submitted and dealt with by the council at the time that the annexation petition is dealt with, again, a couple of years down the road. Then there would be the annexation ordinance, which actually puts the property in the town. And then finally, there would be an ordinance zoning the property after annexation. So as you can see, there's multiple steps here. This is the one that we're talking about right now is step one. There are a number of issues that the parties felt like they needed to address in this pre-annexation agreement. I've never, in my experience, I've never seen a situation like this where property is being developed in the county and then will immediately the newly developed property will be annexed to and made a part of the town. At least that's the hope and the plan. And so we ran into some issues that we needed to try to resolve. And I'm not going to read the memo to you. You've got the memo in front of you and I know you've read it. Maybe the thing to do is just maybe, Mark, do you have anything to add to what I've said as far as an introduction to this?
Thanks, Tim. Well, in the water service agreement, when we had the initial discussion, one of the things that the town, we got an opportunity to do was kind of help shape the design of that building that's coming in there to a certain extent. And, you know, the owner, Marty Getz, agreed to that, and their plans have to be run by us. In addition to that, in this pre-annexation agreement, we're putting a little more clarity on the type of signs they can have out there. There's several signs that they'll be able to keep that are either there or were planned in their sign program with the county. But ultimately, all other signs on the building, et cetera, will eventually be under the guidance of our sign code, which I think is a good thing. And it's probably a little more restrictive than the county's. So we also clarified when the annexation would occur. And that's 6 months after a certificate of occupancy is issued or 2 months after the building shell is completed, because there's a potential that part of the building would be occupied, but not all of it at once. So there's a few things of clarity. Another thing was lighting. We were able to get the lighting specifications. Julia worked with Christy on that. And so there's a few things that I think it was to the town's benefit to get in this. We did get a couple of things previously in the water service agreement, such as an easement, so we could potentially eventually put in another kind of a right turn lane at the intersection there with Highway 9. So overall, I think, you know, this has benefited the town going through this process as it has the applicant.
Thanks, Mark. Welcome, Felice and Marty and Christy. Go ahead, Tim.
No, I was just going to make sure that everybody, that Felice and Marty and Christy could hear us and Just nod. Felice, do you have anything that you want to say on behalf of your client, or just want to move to the council's questions and comments?
Well, probably want to hear the comments of the council, but I would just echo a little bit what Mark and Tim said. The main purpose of this was to get clarification so that when this development does happen, it's very clear, and so hashing out this in the form of a pre-annexation agreement, while a little unusual, I think will work and works to the benefit of both parties, as Mark said. So let's, we can move on to questions.
Thanks, Felice. Questions, council?
Wasn't the issue initially early on about a kind of a wider lane or some sort of egress or exit or egress in and out of the property to make it more seamless with kind of the traffic with 7-Eleven and all that? And is that being addressed?
Mark, you want to take a cut at that from a planning perspective?
Yeah, I think it was a different proposal originally there, Jeffrey, that you may be referring to. In this one, they do have, I believe, right in, right out access off of Highway 9, but it's fairly limited. And then, like I said, we're gonna potentially be able to do this turning lane to add in a right turn lane coming off of 450 onto Highway 9.
So your thought is it is being addressed, and I know this isn't the same project that we looked at years ago, but you know, this is planned to make it kind of fit in, make it easy.
Yeah, and the one thing I failed to mention earlier is we did, you know, Marty agreed to not do basically drive-through, like a drive-through restaurant type thing, because we wanted to avoid that type of traffic queuing at the building itself.
Okay.
I have a question maybe for you, Mark. So, and I guess for Marty as well, I'm just wondering, what is the benefit of Marty, your property being within the town? And then Mark, I wanted to clarify, maybe part of this annexation agreement is the public benefit that we would have this turn lane. Is that the benefit?
Well, I'll start and then let Marty, you know, maybe go on. I mean, that's part of the benefit. There's a few other things like there's a restriction, no marijuana facilities there, dispensaries. That's something that the council previously wanted. We also are going to be able to, you know, review signs and do some things that if it had just been in the county, we wouldn't have any control over whatsoever. And so I think we get a little more control in terms of what happens in the future on this. And obviously another piece of it is just that we'll eventually be getting the sales tax, the town will, for any transactions that occur there.
Carol, I might also mention that at the time that the true annexation agreement is proposed, which will be kind of contemporaneously with the annexation petition, we will have actually seen the property having been developed. And I think we'll have a better understanding of land use issues, for example, that maybe we need to refine as part of the actual annexation. One thing that I mentioned in my memo is the town is required by state law to zone the property within 90 days after annexation. And our system, zoning the property, means placing it in the appropriate land use district. It was the consensus of the parties, and by that I mean Felice and Marty and Christy and Mark and me, that there is no current town land use district that works for this property. And we spent a considerable amount of time negotiating what we think will be a good brand new land use district for this property. And the outlines of that are attached as an exhibit to the pre-annexation agreement. So that work, assuming the council is okay with what we did, has already been done. And that will carry forward actually into an actual annexation agreement itself. So I think there are certainly benefits to both parties here. not only knowing what the annexation process from here on out is going to look like, but how it will work. Again, this is unique, but I think everybody that we work with thinks we can make this work for the benefit of both parties.
Marty, did you have anything to add to that? Can you unmute yourself, sir?
Yes, Marty Getz. No, it was a long process dealing with Mark and Tim and Felice, and Christy was really tremendously beneficial to me to try to get this to work with the town. This property belongs in the town. It's so close, and I think it'd be an asset for both of us to work together on this. So hopefully we'll get this done and then get on with construction and COVID behind us. And
it's a tall order, man.
Yeah, really.
Carol, one of the things also is that once the property is annexed into town, they will not pay out-of-town water rates, which are higher than in-town water rates. So that's a benefit, I think, to Mr. Getz.
Yes, also we donated the land for the right turn lane onto 9. And we also are going to be able to give the town or the bus barn or the bus
shelter
easement on our property once that lane is cut in.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Hey, Carol, just before Kelly asks her question, this was prior to Mr. Getz buying this property, we had multiple owners of the property that had some crazy ideas, some okay ideas. We have gone around and around and around, as Tim knows, on this property for years and years and years with fights and all kinds of things. And I know that it may look at coming in new that we're not getting what we normally get out of an annexation, but believe me, having seen this thing now for 25 or 30 years, this is a great place to be, considering where we could have been. Anything from, McDonald's to a really sort of a rundownish sort of concept for a hotel. I mean, there were so many different concepts that would have markedly changed the entrance to the town that I am honestly very happy that we are where we are. So, Kelly?
Yeah. Tim and Mark reviewed the benefits. I think there's a ton of public benefit, and like's been stated, it's a very visible place in a highly used intersection. So I'm really glad to see in the agreement, there's no drive-through and there are these considerations. So thank you.
Yeah. Kelly.
Yeah, I'm glad you went first because I was still back on, this seems backwards to me, but I guess if there's enough history, I would still love it if, because this is sort of the entrance to the town and with all the families that live up, I guess 452 and all, Wellington and French Creek and everything. I think we need to really be cautious about what kind of crossing is developed there. And I want to certainly I hope that we can be part of that process to make sure that that's a very safe area. We have had issues there in the very recent past. And so we all know that that's an issue. And, if there was an opportunity for a development agreement or something to come that we could discuss, I think that would be really great. If this has to move forward with the county, that's a little bit more awkward and cumbersome, but hopefully Mr. Getz will still consider our input.
Dick.
I echo Kelly's comment about the crossing of Highway 9 right there. There's a lot of kids and there could be more in the future. And, that's a really, really critical crossing. So I hope that we can work together and put a lot of thought into that crossing as it develops. And then I wanted to ask, I might have missed it in the reading for this meeting, but is there, is drive-throughs are prohibited in perpetuity on this property through this agreement?
Yes, there's not to be any drive-throughs.
Okay. Great, that's my thoughts.
Other questions?
Eric, I think I want to make it clear that any changes to the roadway have nothing to do with the county. The roadways are completely within the jurisdiction of the town of Breckenridge. So it's CDOT and the town. And we had that intersection studied, which is, we knew that I think it's referred to as a pork chop that needs to be built there to create a safety island so that you're crossing, the pedestrians cross. One of the big fears is the vehicles turning up are focused. They're making right turns on the 9 and then they're focused on northbound traffic. They're not focused on that. So you're trying to keep their attention straight ahead and they're crossing in that, what we're considering a turn lane. And then there's a safety island, which is the pork chop for the pedestrians to wait before they cross the other part of the highway. And that's why once we identified that as probably the best option to create some increased safety at that intersection, we knew that we didn't have access to enough of that property in order to make that happen. So getting an easement to create that was an important part of the negotiation for the town to be able to address that. That's either going to be on our dime as a community, because I doubt that there will be any CDOT money anytime in the near future with all their transportation infrastructure struggles. So, that's something that's kind of on our timeline to address when we feel it's necessary.
Thanks, Rick. All right, any other questions? Do you want head nod, Tim, or what?
Well, what I would like to do, this agreement will need to be approved via a resolution. I've drafted the resolution, but I didn't put it in the agenda packet because I wanted the council to weigh in on this. But would it be permissible to add the resolution to the nighttime agenda and get this thing signed off?
How's everybody feel about that? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
How would you do that? You have to download another agenda off of Granicus, or is it an email type situation?
Yeah, I will email it to Helen and she can share it, but and we'll just amend, we'll ask at the start of the meeting, Jeffrey, when Rick talks about the agenda, we'll ask for an addition of this resolution, and we'll make sure to figure out a way to get it in front of the council.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I don't have to delete the regular meeting agenda and download another one. Okay.
No, please don't.
Okay. All right. I got you.
All right.
Yep. Felice, Marty, Chrissy looks like she's gone. Anything from your end? Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
Thanks, Felice. Okay.
Man, this is a long time coming, huh?
Oh, I don't know. Do you remember the fight? It was one of my very first council meetings with a guy that wanted to put in the McDonald's. Right there. I was so angry. I've since learned to control myself a little bit better, but that was young.
I think we both have matured.
That was young. You were there with me, Jeffrey. What was that?
Are we going to go with a Quonset hut theme again?
Remember that too? That was awesome. Where I used to take my car.
I know it. Me too.
Okay, we move on to the proposed vacation of part of 4 o'clock right away.
Helen, who do we have joining us? Tracy's there.
Hi, Tracy.
It was Tracy. I believe it was only Tracy.
Okay. I gave you a memo that is not as clear as it should have been. But the short version is, last summer, Tracy contacted me on behalf of her client about an issue with a small triangularly shaped parcel of the very wide 4 o'clock road right of way that is adjacent to her client's front property, or the front side of the house. There has been some confusion over the years about that parcel and whether it is right of way or not. It's my view that it is right of way, and therefore it can be disposed of via not a deed, but a street vacation process. The property is not in the paved right of way.
Oh.
The picture that it was Exhibit 3 to the memo that Tracy had given me actually does have some yellow dots in it, but it's very hard. They're very faint on the one that was given to you. But it's a small parcel. I talked to Shannon Smith about the suggestion that it be vacated. Shannon says we'll never need the property. And so the process normally would be that a landowner would, we have an ordinance dealing with how somebody applies for a street vacation. One of the things that has to be provided to us is a survey showing the parcel to be vacated. And when Tracy and I were talking about the cost of that, they don't have that kind of a survey right now. I suggested to her that it might be helpful to both sides to let the council hear about this at a work session discussion and to get some direction from you guys as to whether you're interested in this or not. If you are, then we can go through the normal process. Although Tracy did mention to me last week, there is a required application fee, I think, of $300 that her client would ask you to waive. But more fundamentally, what do you think about vacating this part of the right of way? It would then become part of her client's property by law, and we wouldn't have that part of the 4 o'clock road right away anymore.
Can I give some background a little bit too? Because I think we're kind of missing a big part of this. Just to kind of let you know, so my client reached out to me because he was concerned about the neighbor encroaching on his property with some flagstones and some sprinklers and whatnot. And I said, okay, well, let's go ahead and take a look at some maps here. So he sends me a copy of his ILC when he bought the property in 2016. He had the survey was done just prior to that. And then we looked at the GIS map and I'm like, well, your ILC shows this perfectly kind of rectangular, kind of apron shape, but the assessor's map shows this cutout. So what gives? When did that piece get taken? And so we went back and looked at his title commitment and looked at all the exceptions, and there's nothing on there. There's no maps on his title work showing that this portion was ever taken. So I go to the title company, I talked to Randy Gibbons over there, and he's looking at it and he says, well, there should be something of record showing when this cutout was taken from this lot 11, this kind of half moon shaped portion along the right of way. And so we're not seeing anything. So I reach out to the town, I talk to a planner. He's able to pull some old plat maps for me. And it looks like when the Tyra plat, where the area was platted in 1972, there's no half moon cutout shape of that lot 11. But then in 1979, there's a re-subdivision and suddenly this half moon portion's missing from the lot. And again, there's a Tyra amended plat in 1980 and it shows the half moon portion gone again. So we do a search of the chain of title and there's no evidence or proof that this was ever conveyed out to the town. There's not even a signature of the plat of the owner of lot 11 when it was when the re-subdivision plat was filed, that he signed off on it. So the kind of the answer I was getting from title was, well, it was the 70s and 80s, who knows what happened. But we don't see anything in the chain of title showing that this portion was ever even properly taken. So it kind of just turned into a bigger issue for my client. We were just trying to address the neighbor.
You know, this used to be the end of the road. This was a turnaround at the end of the road. That's what it was.
Right, prior to annexation of the Trappers Glen, I think.
Correct. And then they built Trappers Glen, because I used to
Correct.
know people that lived in the little fourplex there. And that used to just be a roundabout, a really poorly built roundabout too. So
correct. So they didn't need it. So it was never used, or if it was used at all, who knows? But it's once that was annexed into the town and they didn't need the turnaround anymore, then I guess it just was never subsequently used.
Right. How does everybody feel? First of all, any questions from council?
I mean, what's the downside of just cleaning this up and doing this?
I can tell you that staff does not object to vacating the right of way. It's not something that we would ever anticipate using. We do object to waiving the $300 fee though, because they are getting land, and we have Timberry costs that we've been paying for this. So I think part of that fee is to help offset time, staff time working on this stuff. So.
And we're not going to push that. It was suggested just because this has been costly for my client. We have a potential title claim to go back to the title insurance company for not recognizing this. So that's fine.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Sure.
Tracy, question, what is your client planning on doing with this? Are they going to remove the asphalt, re-veg it, landscape it?
It is the area that's in question right now is just naturally grassed area. There's
not paved.
There's no pavement there. It
Then
actually
it's
runs into his driveway, but he's not planning on doing any improvements to it. He just wants to know it's his so that he can rightfully talk to the neighbor about, removing their improvements.
It's not bad looking right now.
Dennis, there is no paved surface in the area that's asked to be vacated. It will not affect the paved surface of the road at all.
Thank you, Tim.
Dick?
This makes sense to me. I mean, it cleans it up for both sides. But, I also agree with Rick. I would not support the waive of the fee, because the town's had a lot of expense in doing this. So,
Jeffrey?
Yeah, I'm in. I'm in agreement with Dick.
Carol?
Yeah, I agree.
Aaron?
I agree. I'm sorry. Can I just ask a clarifying question? I'm just trying to see if I understand the story right. So it was their land, clerical shift. It was right away. It was our land. And so now we're giving it back. Is that right?
Aaron, originally, when the Tyra subdivision was platted to begin with, there was no half moon cutout in Tracy's client's lot.
Okay.
Then about, what was it, Tracy, 6-7 years after the original plat was filed, an amended subdivision plat was filed that created the half moon cutout. And the reason that half moon cutout was there is because of what Eric said, that they created a circular dead end right in front of Tracy's client's house. And the circular cutout was part of the round circle that was the dead end.
Okay, who's they? Who did that?
The original subdivider did
subdivider.
that.
Okay.
And the issue is when they created, I'm sorry, when the subdivider originally filed the plat and created lot, what is it, Tracy, 11?
11.
I think they sold lot 11 pursuant to the original subdivision plat. When the second plat was filed showing the cutout, they didn't get the consent of the owner of lot 11.
Okay. Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. I'm on board. I get it. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Tim.
Sure.
Those early plats were carved in wood and stone, some of those back in the day.
You're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aaron, are you okay with it then? Okay, Dennis.
Yeah, if Shannon Smith says she never foresees us needing it, and I'm good with it, and I am good with the $300 fee being charged.
Righto, I agree.
Okay, so I will work with Tracy to get the stuff that we need. At some point in the future here, I'll come back to you with an ordinance, which is the procedure that you have to use to vacate a right of way.
Excellent.
Okay, Tracy, did that get you what you need?
Sure did.
Thanks,
right.
Tracy. Thanks, Tim.
Everyone. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All righty. Let us move on to the marijuana discussion regarding potential initiated ordinance allowing marijuana hospitality business.
This is a follow-up to a discussion that the prior council had about a law that was adopted a year and a half ago, I guess, but just became effective January 1st of this year. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
I'm going to let Jeff talk to you guys here in a minute, but I wanted to tee it up. In late November, I guess it was, Jeff had submitted to Helen a form of citizens initiated ordinance to allow what are called marijuana hospitality businesses to be located in the town. I suggested to Jeff that before he starts the process of circulating the petition, that it would be helpful, I think, to everyone for the council to hear from him and what he's proposing and what his client is proposing, and then decide from there whether the council is interested at all in doing a council ordinance, whether you would prefer not to do a council ordinance and have Jeff go about the circulation, or do you want to do a council ordinance and refer it to the voters yourself? This is a fairly complicated issue. I hope that the memo was more helpful than confusing. But with that introduction, Jeff, you want to tell the council what's going on here?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me about this. As you know, I've been kind of rattling the cage of the council about this for a while since they passed that law a couple of years ago with the state. The idea is that one of the gaps that we have in the law, or had in the regulations, was that while we provided the ability to grow and sell and use cannabis, both medical and recreational, we didn't really have any place to go to do that. And I lived and worked in Breckenridge years ago for Kingdom Sports with Kevin Erickson. And this town has a unique challenge, a little bit different, I think, than Denver or Aurora or other places, in that so much of what happens in the town is tourist oriented. And we've heard a lot of problems from condo renters, short-term rentals, people, coming into town, and then they buy cannabis, then they smoke it on this main street and walking up and down, and they're smoking it in the hotels, and they're smoking it in the places that they're renting. And really, it's mainly because, even though, they're not supposed to be doing that in some cases, there's really no place other than that to go. And so one of the reasons that the state moved forward with this type of hospitality licensing is that they wanted to give people an opportunity to not have to hide in alleys or create problems with public consumption, because as we know, there's not a lot you can do with public consumption. Breckenridge moved ahead of the state years ago to reduce penalties for public consumption. And so that's not a very effective way to keep people from smoking marijuana all the place. And I think one of the problems that we're struggling with is, people that want to enjoy cannabis, that's great. They don't mind the smell of marijuana everywhere they go. But now that, for instance, when Vegas legalized it, you walk down the strip and all you smell is marijuana everywhere now. You never did that before. And that's true of Breckenridge. It's true of the Pearl Street Mall. It's true of a lot of places. So we wanted to offer a solution to that under the state guidelines, but the state requires local governments opt in. And so what we proposed was something small. We're not looking to have a big party palace on Main Street. We're looking to have the people that you have entrusted to grow and be responsible with cannabis to be the only ones that could be licensed to do this, so that we keep the people that have already a vested interest in being good neighbors for the town, that we keep this within that. We also proposed that the smoking hospitality rooms is what they're calling them, be adjacent to an existing dispensary, because again, you have been very clear to this point that you want cannabis businesses in certain places. And I heard that talk earlier when we were talking about annexation and that concern again about limitations on where these things could be. So we want to be where we're already allowed to be, next to something that's already allowed to be there. And then finally, I wanted to address some concerns that came up with the last council, because law enforcement raised some concerns. They raised two concerns, primarily that people might be, odor control and things like that. And again, the state has very robust laws with regard to this. It's identical to, and in some ways more strenuous for making sure that you can't detect odor from the outside. Okay, that's still going to be part of the plan. And then again, serving people that are impaired, going out and driving and things like that. And again, I wanted you to know that this was something I was appointed to the task force with the state to make this rule. And what we focused on is enhanced training to detect impairment. Again, nobody's allowed to sell to somebody that's visibly impaired. But again, we need to, the state has taken great steps to work with law enforcement and then to train people in the detection of marijuana impairments, so that if people, so that nobody gets overserved, everything is done that way. And then again, that way we can prevent any kind of problems. But it's our hope here that we can provide a safe place and take some of the problems that local governments are having, including Breckenridge and local law enforcement and the condo owners and the short-term rental folks and the hotels, take that problem and give that a place that gives an alternative. And I think when you do that, then again, it's much more easy, I think, for cops to be able to enforce public consumption tickets and things where there's an alternative for people to go. And we can point and steer them to those things and start re-educating people that come into town or people that are in town that want to do that, that there's a place that you can go. You don't have to be sneaking around the alley, or in the parking lots or whatever. You can go over to these places and use that. And again, so we thought that would be a good idea. We recognize our timing is a bit off. Okay. Nobody is going to really get super excited about hospitality establishments during COVID when we're not gathering and we're not doing these things. But we have a long-term plan. We've been able to already secure a lease on the store adjacent to Breckenridge Organic Therapy, which is your first business, had no problems, provides a lot of jobs and revenue for the town. But again, we've already leased the space adjacent to us, and we're prepared. We're in this for the long term. We don't, we're not looking to shove this down anybody's throat. And that's why, I worked with Helen. That's why I've been talking to Tim about sort of the best way for you guys to approach something like this, and to get, either buy-in or showing the door or whatever you want to do. But I did want to make sure that we had addressed, sort of the concerns that were raised last time, and let you know that it's our intention to partner with the town to try to get something like this done when the time is right, and when things are, and again, on that area of town right now, things are really being developed with the ski area and with the town right there. So I think the timing is good, in terms of getting something like this, but we're also we're happy to be patient for a little slower rollout of something like this. So I'm happy to address any questions. I hopefully can provide some insight on it. I'm doing this all over the town. So
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, let's start with questions for either Mr. Guard or Helen or Tim.
I have a question for Tim. Before we get into the issue, I want to make sure I fully understand our options and the different paths we're considering right now. So Tim, can you talk about, this would either be a council ordinance we would pass, something council could put in the ballot, or the third option would just be a citizen initiated ordinance. I guess my questions are, with each of those scenarios, say it was a citizen initiated ordinance, would council then have, if something did pass, would we have the opportunity to put parameters around that? Or how does that process work?
Carol, there's nothing in the town charter or the town ordinances that treat a citizens initiated ordinance any different than any other ordinance. So it's my belief that if it goes to a vote of a citizens initiated ordinance and it passes, I think the council can still make amendments to it if that's what the council directs. I've got to tell you, I think there is still some debate about that issue in Colorado, but that's what I believe to be the law right now.
Other questions?
Hey, I think we've talked about this before, and one of my concerns was just kind of the sensitivity of impairment tests or something. I think we talked to one guy, and he said like a couple of hits of good pot could bring you over the level where you're not legally supposed to drive. Is that true? Am I misremembering that?
I think any consumption.
Go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I believe it's any consumption of pot and it's illegal to drive. So if anybody were to go into
drive, but
exactly, you can have a drink and still drive. But if anybody were to go into this establishment, partake, then they can't drive legally. Right? That's my understanding of the law.
Let me disagree with you. Part of my part-time is, of course, being a criminal defense attorney. And what I would tell you is the law of impairment for cannabis has a limit of 5 nanograms, per 100 milliliters of blood. And it takes a much more substantial amount of cannabis consumption, even with some of the stronger stuff, to get to the 5 nanograms. That's why they set it where they did. And again, you're not going to get that to that level, off a couple of hits of a joint or anything like that. There is a debate, Aaron, in the law about whether any amount of marijuana is impairing, but that same debate surrounds alcohol. But the state actually has a threshold level to do that. And they are developing some testing for saliva tests and other things that will, obviously we're not going to do blood draws of everybody that comes in there any more than we're breath testing people in alcohol places. But again, there are lots. We're living now in a much more safe environment from that. I think people's habits around becoming intoxicated and becoming impaired are surrounded by Uber and by taxis and by Lyft. And a lot of people are making a lot better choices in this regard so that, they don't have to risk anything. They can have fun, they can go out, and then they don't have to worry. 5 years from now, our Teslas will be driving us home. But until then, that's kind of where things are going. But it is not sort of any amount of a marijuana makes you DUI or under the influence. It really takes quite a bit to get to 5 nanograms.
So Jeffrey, I probably didn't phrase my question well. There is now a quantifiable test that we have that police can determine if someone's too high to drive. I'm more concerned about creating an attractive nuisance where someone that, that isn't too high to drive, but perhaps the law deems that the case, and then they have a DUI in their record or whatnot. So there isn't, that's not a fear right now.
No, it really isn't. And there's not there's not a sort of law enforcement test. Again, from a law enforcement perspective, they are investigating a marijuana DUI exactly like a regular DUI. They are, you're going through the standard field sobriety test, and if you pass the tests, they don't move any further, right? But if you are, you're not standing on one leg properly, and your eyes are funny, and you are not able to walk and turn and follow instructions, and divided attention test, law enforcement believes all those things are sensitive to detecting marijuana, then they will take to that next level and require that you take or complete a blood test, or maybe a saliva test is on the way. But that's how it is. It's sort of done exactly the same. So that's a lot of the same kind of physical observations that an officer would make to even ask you out of the car to do your road size, just like you would with a DUI. Those are the kind of things that employees for marijuana establishments generally, and everybody at my client's business has already been trained in that, so they don't sell to somebody who's under the influence. And then again, if this is also provided and required as part of the training for these hospitality rooms.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
So I thought it was really interesting that you said having a hospitality shop would sort of make it easier for it to be policed, this issue, and like smoking in public and driving, I guess, under the influence. But I was under the impression when we talked to Chief Baird back in March that they were not supportive of these type of facilities. So I was wondering if you had talked to the Breckenridge Police or Summit County, and do you have a understanding of whether they're supportive of these type of facilities?
We had reached out to them, and Kelly, this might surprise you, but law enforcement is not in favor of anything really moving forward with marijuana businesses or making it easier for them to do business. There's a general tension, I think, between the industry and law enforcement in general. So we reached out, and they did not reach back out to us, but we had heard through their comments about what they had expressed as concerns, and we tried to address those, even though we did not have a response to our request for a direct dialogue.
And you guys, I think to be fair, I think Mr. Guards are also painting a picture of a problem in Breckenridge that doesn't exist. And I can tell you, as somebody who's been in the town for 20 years, I would have been the first one to tell you when marijuana consumption, when we started all this back, I don't even remember how many years it's been now, that I thought we would have a lot of public consumption. I thought we were going to have problems with people up and down Main Street, in the alleys. I mean, everything that he's describing, I thought was going to happen. And the reality is we have very, very little. And I'm shocked, but we don't. We have very few complaints. We issue very few. I bet you could, in the number of years, I bet it's a handful of tickets that have been written. Very few summonses written for public consumption. And they're finding places to consume it that are not creating problems within our community. So.
Well, there's so many ways to consume now without being offensive to others. And I think the little bit of public consumption that does happen is going to probably happen anyway. At the ski area and
yeah,
you're right. There. Stuff in town. So I'm not sure that's an argument.
And you know what I was really trying to avoid, and I think, and I'm trying to avoid a discussion on the merits of whether we want, to have these, but I guess you have to have that a little bit, because there's an other side to this argument that also wanted time in front of you, which we didn't do. And that, I mean, you've seen some of their written communication of why they're not supportive of that. Really what we were trying to do was to see if we wanted you to be up to speed on what Mr. Gard is doing, what, the proposed initiative, and to see if you had any desire to exercise one of those other options, or if you prefer to just have him proceed ahead. I very much appreciate his willingness to work with us and to help craft the language if it is a citizen initiative, to help frame it around direction we've received from the council in the past. I'm very appreciative of their willingness to do that. So I think that's one of the reasons we wanted to let him come here today and talk to you, because really we wanted to make sure you're aware of what's going on, so you don't get caught by surprise if the petition's going out there or you hear about it through somebody, but also to see if there was one of these other options you would prefer to go down that road instead. So
final questions before we go to comments about this? Anybody?
Eric, I have one that I'd like to ask Jeff. Jeff, are there any other municipalities in Colorado that have authorized hospitality businesses?
Yes, quite a few. Netherlands is moving forward with this. These Aurora.
Dillon has one.
Dillon has one, obviously, yes.
Summit County, yeah,
and there is some in Aurora's looking at it. Denver is it's kind of getting to the final stages there. I can't think of what the little town is. There's a town within the town of Denver, right by Cherry Creek, where Shotgun Willie's is. But that mayor and his wife own the dispensary there, so they already have one on top of Shotgun Willie's now. So they've got it all in one. You can go downstairs, upstairs, and go to the dispensary. It's just a little play palace. But there's lots of them that are looking at this, because while it may be true, and I don't know that Rick says there's not a problem there. That would be surprising to me, because there's a problem virtually everywhere else. You can't go on 16th Street Mall. You can't go on Pearl Street Mall without smelling cannabis virtually everywhere you go. And so a lot of it, and this isn't just a pitch to solve problems. That's a pitch to see if you want to get on board with this. And to see if some other interest in the town could be brought together on this thing. But I think out of fairness, I think these businesses should have some options, and people should have some options to be able to, go to these with the equivalent of tasting rooms. We have them for wine, we have them for beer, we have them for every tap room everywhere. And again, part of the state's deal was not to just solve problems, but to level the playing field, because the overall philosophy and the overall philosophy of everyone is to, at a certain point in the future, treat cannabis no different, or no worse, at least, than they're treating alcohol businesses, who obviously are very much in a very similar position in terms of managing and balancing, providing controlled substances in a public environment. So that's really, I think, the heart of what the state was doing here, and the heart of what we're proposing as well. But again, if there's no problem to be solved, fine. But we still want to address any concerns that the town would have if we were to move forward, even on our own by petition initiative, which again, of course, we're prepared to do. But we'd much rather have this as a dialogue, or potentially a joint action with the council. So,
thanks, Jeff. All right, who wants to start? Kelly.
So I think my preference is that it would be a petition initiative from the public. I think that we've set the precedent of doing that before, having marijuana be on the ballot and something that people can vote on. And I think that this is a big enough deal, out on Airport Road, we have a lot of families, a lot of employee housing, and a very nice park out there. And I think that those people who would be most affected by having a facility in their neighborhood should be allowed to vote on something like this.
Thanks, Kelly. Aaron?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and I would agree with it. And I do know, I understand trying to treat marijuana like alcohol, but I do think it's a little bit different. I think for a lot of people coming to visit here, it's a novelty. People are more used to alcohol and they're used to how much consumption they can handle before driving. I think it's different with marijuana, and I'm not sure whose shoulders that education falls on how much you can have and still be okay to drive. I mean, we've seen car accidents on Airport Road, and I don't want to see any more. I don't want to see anybody become impaired and drive and have an accident with this. And I definitely don't want to be a part of that. So I agree with Kelly. And there's some concerns here for the safety of our community and the impacts there. I mean, and truth be told, I don't want to see a lot more bars down Airport Road either, for the same reason. We do have, Kelly is absolutely right. We have a lot of families there, and it's growing. We're going to have more. We're going to have more workforce housing in that area. And so I think we really need to be careful. And I understand that, different communities might be experiencing marijuana differently with people smoking on Main Street. And I'm pretty happy with the scenario that we have right now. And so I think, if it has to be a community initiative, then so be it.
Dennis?
Yeah, I understand it fully. And Jeff, I really appreciate you bringing it to us. I am in agreement with Kelly and Aaron. I'd like to see it be a petition initiative.
Carol?
I agree with what's been said. And thank you, Jeff, for speaking with us. I agree that we shouldn't treat adult substances differently, be it alcohol or marijuana, but then we're going to have to include tobacco into that conversation. And right now we don't allow cigar lounges. So I agree with letting it be a citizen petition.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, I think I'm probably a little more sympathetic than a lot of people. Honestly, I think pot is less damaging than booze, though I enjoy both. But I do think that's just my opinion. And I think in this case that there is a stigma attached to one and not the other. And that is a stigma attached to pot. And so I would let the citizens weigh in on it, and then they can make the choice, because I think I'm jaded in it. When Ellie and I brought the open space before the council, we pretty much said the same thing. We wanted either the council to raise the sales tax, or the council to put it on the ballot to vote on the sales tax. Council, actually, the first one was have the council create an open space fund or put it on the ballot. And the council said, no, you need to get citizens' approval and have the citizens weigh in on it. So I think this is similar, and I think there's going to be a lot of divided opinions, and I'd rather have the citizens weigh in on it.
Dick?
Yeah, I agree with all the comments made. And Jeff, I appreciate you coming and pitching it. I just a piece of input for you. I do think it's a mistake to not have the transportation piece in there. We don't have reliable, Uber or Lyft or any of them. I mean, we have them sometimes, and often when people are partying, they're not very available. So,
Dick, let me ask you, let's assume that we were to pitch it with the transportation piece where the business would provide the shuttle. How much would that sway Aaron or Kelly or Dennis, for that matter, in going in a different direction rather than the citizen petition initiative? Because what I'm hearing is that we kind of like people in Breckenridge to decide these things themselves, especially on these big issues. So, wouldn't sway things sort of one way or the other. But if it was something where we felt we had council's 100% support, it's something I think we could do. It's just, we've shied away from that a little bit just because of the expense for the relatively nominal amount of money that's going to be generated by having this. This is really providing a service rather than something for profit. But I just throw that out there.
Yeah, it doesn't sway me. I agree with the comments made previously that really we should let the citizens decide. I just give that input from the standpoint of, if we're going to do a citizens initiative, it would certainly be a shame if it were to pass and not have that element in there, because I do think it's a bigger issue than you paint.
Thanks, Dick. Does anybody else, would that change their vote?
I think it would help you with the citizens. I mean, if you want it to be treated equally, Broken Compass and Breck Distillery both have shuttles. So I think that would help with the citizens initiative, but I'm with Dick. I'd vote the same way.
Thank you.
So, and I agree with everybody's comments. I have another, we have this indoor clean air safety thing is a pretty big deal. It's every restaurant, it's every place in town where you can go and relax. You cannot smoke cigarettes, you cannot smoke cigars. We definitely have one business in town at Cecilia's that has argued for years that he should be allowed to have cigar smoke. I think it would be a smack in the face of the people that have fought for that piece to allow this from a council. I just don't think that would be fair at all. We would then just be saying, look, it's okay to smoke marijuana indoors, but it's not okay to smoke anything else. It really opens a can of worms if the council decides to put this, just either allow this or to put this on the ballot ourselves and just say to them, well, it's not a big deal. We'll allow cigar smoke too. And I don't agree with any of that. This other piece with, you really don't smell it on Main Street. Originally, when the first part of this law was passed in Colorado, was the holdout in the country that had marijuana. It was a big deal in town. Now you can get marijuana in a lot of states in this country. It is not what it used to be. Obviously, there's good tax revenue because there are people that come here that are users, and that's great. I agree with Jeffrey. I think it is either less harmful or as harmful as liquor. Like any business, if this passes, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of consumption. But for me, the important piece is you shouldn't be allowed to smoke indoors and subject employees and other people to secondhand smoke. And I think there's plenty of scientific evidence that secondhand smoke from marijuana is also cancer causing. So I agree. You have the right to go to the electors. You have the right to get a valid petition with the 650 names, work with Helen on getting it on the ballot, and we'll let the electors or the voters in this town decide if they feel that that those issues are not important to them. Anything else, Tim?
No, this would be a little bit of an odd situation. I know that, Helen would obviously have to be involved in the process. Would it be okay with the council if I also work with Jeff on, it would still be his petition, but I would like to just make sure that it's in a form that if it passes, that we can enforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like Jeffrey said, Tim, Jeffrey did it for open space. I have now for years, probably been the only one on council that suggests we do this for childcare too, that we do have a citizens initiative, and the council doesn't just do these things because we feel, we should collect tax money also. So I think this is in line with other things that we've done in the past and some of the philosophies of members of this council.
Great.
All right, Jeff, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time and appreciate the input. And also, I really appreciate you letting Tim answer my phone calls, because I'm not in the business of lobbying or citizen petition initiating or anything else. And I'm going to I want to make sure if we're going to do something like this, we get it right and don't mess anything up. So thank you.
And just for clarification, there was a question on the thing. It's 650 names have to go onto a petition in order for it. It's 15% of the electorate. Is that right, Helen? That's the
Correct,
number
yes.
of people that have to sign on to the
Oh.
petition in order for it to get on the ballot. And then it has to win by a margin of 50% of the people that vote in that election.
And I'll just clarify that it's 15% of the registered voters at our last regular election, which was our April election for council.
Which was a good one. All righty. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next we have
COVID.
COVID.
Uh,
What do you do
so-
when there's no more COVID?
Yeah. Let's see what all we want to address. I want to be cognizant of the time here, and we could probably go, I think we're going to need a short break before we get into the regular meeting tonight. So, you know, maybe we only want to spend 10 to 15 minutes if we need to on COVID update. And then I do want to let you, one question I have for the council is, you know, at the last, well, probably was a special meeting that we did where we approved the business relief, rent relief program that we're currently doing and administering for the month of January. And at that time, the council had said, you know, let's be prepared to do January and February, although we're only going to advertise right now January. And, you know, everybody needs to understand that there's no guarantee of February. And then shortly after making that decision, obviously the governor surprised everybody and let people, you know, moved us into level orange, which had some impacts, you know, with opening some things up. Certainly lodging got a little bit of a shot. You know, they were able to go from one household to at least up to 2 households and up to 10 people. A little bit of change for restaurants, but the majority of our restaurants were 5-star. So it didn't make a big change, but it did allow the spacing to go from 10 feet to 6 feet, which allowed them to add some more people inside their establishments. But it's probably nothing that's going to still get them anywhere close to revenues that they would typically be seeing this time of year. So what I want to do is see if, based on the changes that have happened, if the council has any desire, and we don't have to decide this right now, but it might be helpful if we do, any desire to do anything different with February relief. Number one, do you still want to have it? If you do have it, do you want to just keep it in the same form that it is right now with the qualifications, or do you just not want to have it? I will say that we will be getting some additional relief monies through the county as part of the MOU that I signed, but it's not going to be great. But that'll probably start coming to us mid-January, mid to third week January. So I would anticipate some of that will be used for some February relief. But you know, do you want to do what we had set out to do and continue to do with February?
Yeah, I don't think that anybody has opened up to such an extent that it has relieved the pressure and the need.
Yeah, I
Agree.
agree. I think the need's going to be there for sure.
All right.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
And I like keeping it the same, Rick, unless there's a reason to change it.
Do we have the dough?
Well, yeah, nothing's really that different for us than before. I just, you know, I mean, there will be some, they're in a little better position than they were before, but not enough better to make you change your mind, I guess is what I'm seeing. So Shannon, did you need to make a comment?
Yeah, and I guess 2 things to Jeffrey's point. Although we've been trying to solicit the business relief program in a variety of different ways, we haven't seen a ton of applications come in. So there is still funding available for February. We'll see, you know, kind of how that all plays out. And then kind of along the same vein, I think I provided you the other day or one day last week with the information from FERC on the worker relief program as well. They've been lucky enough to get some additional funding that they'll start using. So they've used some of our town money. We think it'll probably be about $160,000 that's been used. Then they'll start using this other funding that they've received. So we're wondering if council would like staff to continue to work with FERC and potentially provide around a February worker rent relief as well.
I am fully supportive of that.
Yeah, I am as well. I do. Absolutely.
Yeah, fully supportive. And I think kudos to FERC for doing an amazing job securing federal and state dollars. They've done a great job to help town dollars last longer.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
Anything else on those two pieces?
No, we'll just keep the same qualifications. I don't hear any desire to change it. That's really going to be the easiest for staff too, not to have to come in and create a new program with new criteria. So we'll just leave it the same.
Hey, let's just touch back on this issue real quick about the vaccination and the vaccination card. It's, it's something that we are talking about. It will be a headache. There is no doubt. The states that like to come here, and some of them didn't believe in masks originally. So we're going to you'll get fake vaccination cards. I think, honestly, through this whole thing, the best thing that we can do is just to stay the course with the things that we've already been doing, because there seems to be no evidence that getting vaccinated helps anybody but yourself. And, for now, until we know differently, I don't see any reason for us to even have a discussion about removing our mask ordinances or the things that we've been doing that have made us honestly pretty successful. I mean, you can say what you want about our ups and downs, and, it is a countywide number that we look at with that incidents per 100,000, but really our death count has been sad that anybody has died of this, but it's been lower than a lot of other places. And I think a lot of that has to do with the things that not only this council, but the county and the other towns put into effect early on and held steadfast on. And I think we've been very successful. So I don't think we should change what we've been doing as far as following health orders.
I totally agree. And thank you for that. I'm glad that we're talking about it now before all the questions come up and everything. So I think it's great.
I got my vaccine card. Let me in.
Exactly. And special treatment, and maybe this is because of where I am in the line, but I don't want our society or community to turn into like a vaccine class type place. So I think it's good. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we talked about at MMC is there's going to be a need for additional marketing and messaging that has to get pushed out, because there's a lot of false information out there, I think, relative to this. And, we're continuing to look at opportunities. CDOT still has some grant monies for different projects, ones that paid for our barricade stuff. And we've gotten a grant that did our lighting along the Riverwalk area that has turned out really great. And, we're going to put in for 2 more large portable variable message signs. I don't think we can have enough of those to put strategically around to help with messaging, and certainly with, mask messaging that we do right now, and, into the future on different things. So we'll see where that goes.
We might mention to Lucy and, some of the marketing folks in town that I'd like to come up with some kind of message around we need to stay the course. It's not time yet to give up on everything we're doing that works, and maybe start working on the next generation of a campaign.
Does anybody have any other COVID related follow-up? Right now, nothing from the town that I want to update you on, but there is one other item that I think it involves a little bit of time that would be part of my manager's update that I'd like to go into before
I have a
we
quick
go.
question that maybe Shannon can answer. When are they dropping the age from 70? As far as opening up a vaccination, do you have any idea?
She's
Sorry,
coughing.
a little tickle. So the governor, what we heard today is the governor will decide in the next few weeks whether or not he's gonna incorporate that CDC recommendation and go down to the 65 plus.
Okay.
So more to come on that.
I'd like to open it up just to 69 so we can get Dennis in there.
I appreciate that, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Rick.
I wanted to let you know that Mark Truckee and I met with representatives of the Woods Drive HOA. Their homeowners association up on Woods. Everybody's familiar with where Woods Drive is, up above the Gold Rush. And as you might expect, they had they're concerned and about the the proposed parking structure that is proposed to go on the Gold Rush. They're concerned about at what point are they allowed, public input on this, questions relative to the wetlands areas. They had a lot of questions because the land use for that area does not have parking in it. It's residential land use. And they didn't really understand the town code, and we explained to them that the way our code is that if it's not an allowed usage and the land use, that what it does is it incurs negative points that then that developer has to overcome. But it's not something that would prohibit a development. That's not the type of zoning that we do in Breckenridge.
So Rick, you're talking about the BGV garage, not our garage, is that?
BGV garage proposed on Gold Rush, yes. And keep in mind that it's proposed at the south. Gold Rush is really kind of bisected by Woods Drive, right? That's a town roadway that goes up there. So, the southern part of that is where the parking structure, I believe, what's currently proposed is about roughly 750, let's say, parking spaces in a structure. The remaining balance of those, there's 1,010 parking spaces that have to be replaced that aren't accounted for on as part of what we're doing on South Gondola. So, you'd have 700 and something spaces in a parking structure, and the remainder of those would probably be surface spaces, I guess, on the north part of the Gold Rush lot. But anyways, so we explained to them how the planning process will work. We explained to them, the process dealing with wetlands, basically the town code and the water quality part of the town code gives the authority to the town engineer at the request that a request is made for a variance of the code relative to building in or around wetlands, and it's up to the town engineer to determine if that variance is granted, or if there's another reasonable alternative that could be done on that. And so, that's what we explained to them. I think I'll tell you the bigger concern is that I'm having is that how we're going to properly vet and look at this situation. And I'm comfortable talking to you a little bit about this because there is no application that's been made, and it's not an ex parte communication because there's no application at this time. But what I'm going to be doing and what I've started the wheels in motion to do today is to put together an internal committee made up of representative from the police department, public works, town engineer, open space, and Shannon and myself, plus obviously Mark and the lead on the project, which is Chris Kulik out of planning, to have an internal team that is able to put more eyes onto this issue and really vet what is considered, you know, what's in the best interest of the town. Is it to grant a variance, or is it to look at what that reasonable alternative? Because that reasonable alternative, what we're hearing may be 2 structures, you know, or separating that parking more and moving more parking to the northern part of Gold Rush, which could create a worse problem from us from an operational standpoint. So you know, this is, there's a lot of things that we really got to look at, because I can tell you what I don't want to see is that I do not want to saddle this community for the next 15, 75 years with another South Park Village problem that we have to battle every ski season because of hundreds and thousands of people crossing the state highway and backing up traffic and taking town resources to address that. And that is something that we have to get our arms around. You know, they're required to do a traffic study. We're going to see the first draft of that traffic study, which addresses pedestrian flow, vehicular flow. I want this full committee looking at that information and vetting this and trying to address every potential problem that could happen. And then what do we have the power and the ability to force them to mitigate, to lessen the impact of that? And that's where we will work close with Tim Berry. And at the same time, we want to be transparent, because the Woods Drive will not be the only community members that raise a concern about this, right? We know that.
We've already gotten letters.
Yeah. But we also know that they have every right to develop property. And so we have to work within the confines of our code, what we're allowed to do, push back where we're allowed to push back, require, you know, if we have the ability to require something to be mitigated to lessen an impact, then we want to, you know what that looks like and be able to do that. And so, I mean, one of the first things is, you know, so it's just such a big issue, more than are we going to, you know, allow a variance for, you know, wetlands right now. It's just such a bigger picture to me that we have one bite at the apple. So that's kind of the plan right now. And it's going to get difficult at some point. It's going to be, you know, we won't even be able to talk to you about it. So, yeah.
Is there already an application for a variance on the wetland standards?
No, we expect there could be a draft of that application for variance that we may see soon.
Rick, does that put us in the position of no ex parte conversations if that application for a variance comes in?
I don't know. I'll have to ask Tim, because I don't know if an application for a variance is something that you even, if our code allows you to, I don't even know if you have the ability to call that up.
Yeah.
So maybe not.
And is there any, like, with a variance, is there any public process? You know, is there a platform for people to discuss or put in their input on the variance?
I don't think the code allows for that, but I want to somehow make sure that we do that, because I think it's important, especially, you know, to communicate. If we decide that granting a variance is the best outcome for the town in the long run, I want to be able to communicate why, right? To show that we've truly done our homework and feel that this is why we think that this is the best outcome for us. It's a relatively small and the Army Corps has little interest because the impact from their perspective is less than 1/10 of an acre. So it doesn't really meet their criteria. For us, it's more about it falls within our within a 25. It encroaches within the setback that we require from right-of-ways. It's not so much that they're on the wetlands as they're within that 25-foot setback that's required. So.
Well, I appreciate you giving it a good look, because I just think that, you know, although they have the right to develop, just like you said, this is such an important process to really get right. And we have so few opportunities right now to put any input in.
And Rick, I really like your idea of an internal within the town workforce. I really want to have some conversations with all of you before we get to that point where we can't talk about it.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
During this meeting, I just got an email from Shannon Smith that she received a draft application for a variance already.
Mm-hmm.
I want to look at this, but I don't think you can submit an application for a variance outside the context of a development permit application. But let's not spend a lot more time right now talking about the wetlands variance.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Got in what I could. All right. Thanks for.
I just want to echo. Thank you, Rick. And I said, I just want to echo, thank you, Rick, for looking at the traffic portion and the crossing, because I don't think I thought about it quite like that, about creating another stopping point, like the south side of Park. So thank you.
All right. Let's cut off those conversations.
We're gonna go to a exec session now.
Yeah. I gave Kelly a motion. You're ready to go? Kelly, you're muted.
You're muted.
Hold on a sec. I gotta find my copy.
Of course.
Did you send me a copy too? You must have.
Yeah.
I'm texting it to you. All right, it's in your text probably.
Thanks. I only get like.
I move that the town council go into executive session pursuant to paragraph 4F of section 246402 CRS relating to personal matters. Jeffrey, second.
Second.
Motion has been made for the town council to go into an executive session pursuant to paragraph 4F, section 246402 CRS relating to personnel matters. Subject of the executive session is the annual performance evaluation of the town manager. Roll call.
Mr. Yellow?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Ms. Sade?
Yes.
Ms. Owens?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes.
Mayor Mamula?
Yes.
All right, so if everybody would just, you can either go out or mute yourself, shut off your camera, and then go log into a go-to meeting that Shannon gave you.
But we have to leave here. Don't we have to get out, leave this meeting?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Where's our last council woman?
Who is it?
Kelly. You yell out the window, see where she is. There she is. All right, I'm going to call the order the town council regular session for the 12th of January, 2021. It is 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Ms. Sade,
Here.
Mr. Carlton,
Here.
Mr. Bergeron,
Here.
Ms. Owens,
Here.
Mr. Kuhn,
Present.
Ms. Giello,
Here.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right. Before we get going, there will be citizens' comments this evening. If you are out in the public and wish to comment, you can start writing now. It's Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and you can get a little advance on that typing if you'd like to. We have approval of the minutes, town council minutes for December 8th, December 22nd, and December 29th. Those are 2 COVID meetings and a regular meeting. Does anybody have any issues with the minutes from those 3 meetings? Shake of heads. Minutes for those meetings stand as presented. Approval of the agenda, Rick. What are we adding?
I have 2 items to add. The first item under new business resolution, we need to add resolution number 1, series 2021, a resolution approving a pre-annexation agreement. Also under new business, other matters, I need to ask for a motion to ratify the town manager signing an MOU with Summit County and the other towns on January 7th for the distribution of funds with the state of Colorado Small Business Relief Program.
You got that, Jeffrey?
Am I supposed to memorize all that?
Yes.
I will read it again at the start of that.
Yeah, a little prompt would be good. Then I'll just riff.
Yeah.
Tim loves it when I do that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now it is time for communications to council. These are citizens' comments, non-agenda item only. And I'm going to give everybody 30 more seconds. And then we'll move on to the regular meeting. If anybody has anything they want to bring to our attention right now. All right, and with that, I'm going to close citizens' comments. BTO update. Who do we have tonight? Hi, Lucy.
Hi, everybody. I'll be quick today. Wanted to give you a quick update on how lodging was over the holiday. We got the December 31st DMX report just on Monday. And the final numbers were that from the December 15th until January 3rd, which is what we're calling the holiday, we ended up about 17% down just for that window. That's about 4,000 room nights. All the lodging reports that I'll do for you guys, I'm always going to do them in room nights going forward because occupancy isn't that reliable anymore. Most of that drop in the room nights for the holidays came in the last 2 weeks of December when we were looking at the mid-November report and also, at the November 30th report and the December 15th report. The numbers looked much more strong, but those last 2 weeks of December, there were a lot of cancellations. There were a lot of bookings too, but obviously more cancellations than bookings. And with the loss of the lifestyle group, I think that part of that fell in that window. So 17% down for the last 2 weeks in December. Looking forward for January right now, we're looking at 20% off again in room nights. And for the entire winter season, we're looking at 16% down. Well, that's not great news. We are doing better than the comp set at Destimetrics, so that's worth something. Our lodges anecdotally are telling us that they're able to hold rate, and we're also anecdotally seeing a good number of bookings, but the length of stays are a little shorter. So that's some of what's impacting these lodging numbers. Part of what we're wrestling with the DMX reports is the timing of the reports, and occupancy isn't that relevant a message anymore. So we have contracted with Key Data, which is a company that works on a similar pattern, but they get real-time data and we can look at it daily. And downside of Key Data is they don't have as many properties on board, but Bill Wachowski is working hard to get more properties involved. So that will become another good research source for us. And then we've also contracted with a company called C-Source. And C-Source will be similar to Arrivalist. For those of you that remember that, that was the really cool data where we track people by their cell phones and you can see how they move around town and all that kind of stuff. C-Source does a similar thing for a lot less money. A lot of DMOs use them. And within the next 2 weeks here, we'll have dashboards up and running. So I really feel like between DMX and Key Data and C-Source, we're going to have a lot more confidence in the data and the way we're able to forecast. Looking forward and also assess what's just happened. The other thing over the holidays I thought I would share, and I apologize, some of you have heard this on Resiliency Committee, but in terms of who was here, we were quite surprised that even though we had a smaller sample set of intercept surveys that we did, like man on the street surveys, we have enough certainly that it's statistically valid. Our business mix was pretty comparable to what it normally would be around Christmas. So we had just a little over 50%, 53% were out-of-state destination guests. The real whole was international, was pretty much 0, where typically that would be 5%. So when you put international with out-of-state, that would put us a little more than 10% down in that segment. But just domestic out-of-state relative to last year was similar. Now the shift there, we had a lot more from Texas. Texas is always our biggest market out of Colorado, but Texas was really big this Christmas, or this Christmas season. The other thing I would call out on that is people that were staying in Breckenridge. So out-of-state guests that were staying in Breck were 79% of our total. Typically that's 89%. So we slipped back there. And that's consistent with what we heard, again, anecdotally from some of our lodges. They said they were concerned with our restrictions and things like that. People were going to Eagle County and, you know, canceling the reservations here. So that piece of information kind of fits with that data. 23% of our day visitors were from out of state. So that means people that stayed in other, you know, weren't staying in Breckenridge and came in here for the day. So that's a pretty high number for us. So that's something we'll definitely keep an eye on. We added some new stuff in the survey this year relative to COVID and protocols. And we asked people how safe they felt when they were in Breckenridge. And on a scale of 1 to 10, we were 8.9 over the Christmas holiday. So that's really good. We asked them how well we did on meeting their expectations. Did we prepare them properly for what to expect when they got here? We got a 9.3 on that one. And we asked whether the protocol seemed to be appropriate for what was going on, and we got 8.6 there. So we thought those were all really solid, good numbers, and not too many people were shocked at what they found when they came into the mask zone and things like that. One thing, so any questions or comments on any of the data? That's, I mean, we have a lot more, but that's all I'll do tonight.
So Lucy, you said that we were only down 17% from last year for the holiday, I don't know, is it 2 weeks?
Yeah, December 15th through January 3rd was the survey period.
So only down 17%.
Yeah, and that's about 4,000 room nights. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, you know, it was good. And like I said, we're doing better than some of the comps set.
Do you have any sense that how the difference between, say, a hotel or a lodge, you know, more kind of all-inclusive compared to a VRBO is because of the restrictions of the pandemic? Are more people going to kind of rental homes, or are they staying at like a Beaver Run?
Yeah, we do. We do ask about the booking channel, Jeffrey, and the RVOs were down, and direct to property jumped. It was 26%, and it's normally 7% for that window.
What's
and
a direct?
that makes sense because people want to book directly with the property, because if they have to cancel, you're going to have a better shot at getting your money back direct from the property versus going through some of these channels, these other channels.
So when you say direct to property, do you mean like a Beaver Run or a Marriott?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the losses were in RVO, and then there was a big drop in like the Expedias and Travelocity, those kind of OTA channels. Again, because it's, if you've ever tried to get a refund when you book through those guys, it's always a little harder.
Yeah.
Logically it makes sense.
Okay.
Hey, Lucy,
Yeah.
do you have any sense if how many, I know the room nights, were down 17%, but was our actual head counts in town much lower than that because of the multiple groups getting extra rooms and less density in the rooms?
That could be, that logically is what you would think. We don't have a way to measure number of people in town in any real accurate way. I'm hoping that C-Source is going to help us with that when we can we can count how many cell phones were in town on a given day. But I can't answer that for this last holiday period.
Right, thanks.
Okay, anything else on the data?
Questions?
All right, just real quick, I just want to talk about the Build Back Better, and really thank you for the conversation earlier today. And I want to assure you, and I hope you all know this, in our mind, in the BTO's world, better does not mean more. Better means better. And Saz, our board president, actually asked me to change the name because he's concerned that Build Back Better is going to make people jump to the conclusion that that means like hurry up and get it back. And so we are working on some different names for that. The BTO team actually had a great day today brainstorming names. They were so happy to do something besides COVID. It was good for them. So, but please know, like better means better in our world, and like our the end game, and this is much easier said than done, but the goal that we'll have, and it's consistent with a lot of DMOs, that the more progressive DMOs and the Colorado Tourism Office and groups like that, is we are going to be looking for ways that we can target guests whose value sets align with ours. So, it's going to be like straight out of the DMP, the kind of things that were important to us. We're going to figure out who are people who think about the environment, who think about other people, who think about the world in a similar way to us, and try to invite those people in first. And again, there's not an easy way to do that, but we're all kind of working collaboratively in the industry to try to make some inroads on that. So please know that's our intent, and it's going to be a lot of work. And I agree. I don't remember. I think maybe Eric, you said it earlier. There's no rush on this because we're still in this COVID thing for a long time. And I think this is something that's so important. It's under responsible tourism. We're going to take our time and get it right. It's like an extension of the DMP now with a clean slate as to how we apply all that work that we did. So again, just thank you for the conversation earlier today.
Thanks for that, Lucy. It's going to be hard too, because there will be people in the community that want things to be back to where they were 2 years ago, day one. And
yeah.
we will have to,
yeah.
we will have to push back against that feeling that we need to get back to living in crazy land.
Yeah, well, day one could well be in 2022.
Sure.
Who knows?
Absolutely.
And one thing we'll do as part of this whole process is we're planning on doing another resident survey, and we're just really working through what's the right timing for that. Right now, I'm thinking maybe late March, April, somewhere in there, just to understand, well, what does the community really want?
Yeah, good.
And in this new world order. So I believe we're all on the same page here. And again, thanks for that conversation earlier today.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Lucy.
Anything else? All right. Thanks a lot, Lucy.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
All right. We move on to continued business. We have second readings. We have a second reading of Council Bill number 43, Series 2020. It's an ordinance approving a lease with Breckenridge Montessori, Inc., Colorado Nonprofit Corporation, 318 North Main Street. Tim? You?
Sure. This is second reading of an ordinance to approve a new lease with the Breckenridge Montessori. There are a couple of changes proposed to the lease from first reading. As Corey Burr's memo indicates, it has to do with a clarification of the end of the lease term so that it will be more in line with the needs of the school. So Jeffrey, when the motion is made, please refer to the form of the ordinance that's in the agenda packet.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim? Anybody in the public wish to comment on this second reading? You have 30 seconds starting now. Use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, please. All right, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
I move we pass on second reading Council Bill number 43, Series 2021, in the form that's in the agenda packet.
Jeffrey,
Yeah.
it's actually Series 2020, not 2021.
Because we introduced it in 2020.
That was a trick motion then. All right,
Mhm.
start over. I move that we pass on second reading Council Bill number 43, Series 2020, in the form that's in the agenda packet.
Second.
There was a motion and a second. Any further discussion from council? Roll call, please.
Ms. Cielo,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have a second reading of Council Bill number 44, Series 2020, Jeffrey. It's an ordinance amending Chapter 4 of Title 3 of the Breckenridge Town Code, known as the Breckenridge Accommodation Tax Ordinance, concerning the remote sale of lodging.
With the council's consent, this introduction will apply to Council Bill 44, 45, and 46. Each of these ordinances amend a town tax ordinance to implement the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in what is known as the Wayfair decision from a couple of years ago now. In that case, the court said that unlike the old rule that you could not tax an entity who did not have a physical presence in the town of Breckenridge, court said we can now tax entities that have an economic presence. The term is economic nexus in the town. These ordinances are essentially the product of a working committee that the Colorado Municipal League formed involving home rule municipalities that collect their own tax. And they put together a sample ordinance. The ordinances that we're talking about here were crafted after that model. I think it's a proper and a good thing for the town to do to implement the new authority that the Supreme Court gave us. And I don't think there are any amendments to any of these three ordinances on second reading.
Thank you, Tim. Are there any questions for Tim?
Tim, could you make just like a hat trick of motions? Did you have to?
No, and Jeffrey, the reason is the council should have the ability to vote no on one and yes on the other.
Okay.
So I'm afraid you'll have to do three motions, even though I lumped them together in my presentation.
I get you.
Tim can do whatever he wants. Any other questions? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this motion? You have 30 seconds. Please use the function at the bottom of your screen. I see the junior councilman has joined us.
He's a bad actor. I don't know. He looks like he's trouble.
Oh, and you're not?
I can recognize him. I can recognize trouble when I see it.
All right, seeing no public comment, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
On second reading, I move we pass Council Bill number 44, Series 2020, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? Roll call, please, Helen.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Ms. Owens. Can you say it again, Ms. Owens? Oh, is she frozen?
It's frozen.
I did say yes.
There you are. You were frozen.
Sorry.
We're good. Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have a second reading of Council Bill number 45, Series 2020, an ordinance amending Chapter 1 of Title 3 of the Breckenridge Town Code, known as the Town of Breckenridge Sales Tax Ordinance concerning remote sales.
We ready for a motion? Do we want to do a public comment or what do you want to do?
I'm sorry, I thought Tim was going to talk. Does anybody have any questions for Tim on this one? All right, we have 30 seconds for public comment. Use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I already started timing since I don't expect anything. And seeing no comments, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
On second reading, I move we pass Council Bill number 45, Series 2020, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion from council? Roll call, please, Helen.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have a second reading of Council Bill number 46, Series 2020. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 1, Title 4 of the Breckenridge Town Code, known as the Town of Breckenridge Business and Occupational Licenses and Tax Ordinance, defining the term economic nexus, accepting retailers having only an economic nexus within the town from the requirement to obtain a license under Chapter 1 of Title 4 of the Breckenridge Town Code, and requiring the accepted retailers to provide certain information to the finance director. Anybody have any questions for Tim? Nope. If you want to comment on this, the time starts now. You have 30 seconds to put it in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Seeing no comments, that ends the public hearing. Is there a motion?
On second reading, I move we pass Council Bill number 46, Series 2020, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
You try again.
The hell was that?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have a second reading of Council Bill number 47, Series 2020. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 1, Title 4 of the Breckenridge Town Code, known as the Town of Breckenridge Business and Occupational Licenses and Tax Ordinance concerning occupancy limits for accommodation units. Tim?
This ordinance essentially makes two amendments to the Bolt ordinance with respect to accommodation units. One, it puts into the ordinance form the definition of a bedroom that is used by the Summit County assessor. And two, it creates an appeal process so that if owners of accommodation unit don't like the staff's determination of the number of bedrooms, that the disgruntled owner can appeal to the town council. There is one proposed change to the ordinance. It's in the last section with respect to the effective date. This will, if it's approved, it will simply go into effect 35 days after second reading as currently required by the town charter. So Jeffrey, please refer to the form of the ordinance that's in the agenda packet.
Any questions for Tim? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this ordinance? You have 30 seconds starting now. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. This is one part of Zoom meetings I will not miss, the 30-second wait.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's going to be weird when we're all back together again.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of rearrange our seating when that time comes.
Sure. You want my seat?
I just kind of like to be, have a little bit of more freedom to move.
That's it for public comment. Is there a motion, Jeffrey?
I move we pass on second reading, Council Bill number 47, 2020, in the form that's in the agenda packet.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from council? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. Tim, for first readings, where does the motion to ratify the MOU go? After the resolution?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. Okay, so we have first reading of Council Bill number 1, Series 2021, an ordinance approving a ground lease with Alta Verde LLC, Wisconsin Limited Liability Company, the Alta Verde Affordable Housing Project.
Here comes Nicole.
Excellent. Hi, Nicole.
Oh, right. So this first reading of the ordinance is basically to say what you just said, is to approve a 75-year ground lease with Alta Verde LLC for the purpose of constructing 80 apartments that'll be rented at 60% AMI and below out on the 4-acre McCain parcel. This ground lease is 75 years on its initial term, 75 years on the subsequent term. And if you guys have any questions, just a note, as Tim noted in the work session, this is the first reading and there will be some changes that would be identified once the second reading occurs, but those will be highlighted for you. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Nicole. Any questions for staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on Council Bill number 1? Begin now, Q&A function at the bottom. First one of the year.
Yeah.
Out of the gate, it's got Nicole's name all over it.
She's the future.
Yeah, she is the future.
Although I couldn't get your Zoom to work today, Jeffrey.
You're not really IT savvy.
Not.
I circumnavigated you, went right to Chris.
You and Chris are pretty tight, huh, Jeffrey?
He's been screening my calls.
That's 30 seconds. The public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
I move we pass resolution number 1, series 2021. No, I'm sorry. Council Bill number 1, series 2021. An ordinance approving a ground lease with Alta Verde LLC, a Wisconsin Limited Liability Company.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have a first reading of resolution approving a pre-annexation. This is resolution number 1, series 2021. It's a resolution approving a pre-annexation agreement, tract A2 Entrada at Breckenridge.
I sent out to the council during the executive session a form of this proposed resolution. Did the council receive it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've also asked Helen to put it on the screen so the public can see it. In 2017, rather, the town entered into an out-of-town water service agreement to provide water for the property that is commonly known as Entrada, which is located at the intersection of Highway 9 and County Road 450. Part of the out-of-town water agreement is a provision contemplating the annexation of the property after it has been developed in the county. The agreement that this resolution would approve sets forth agreements on a number of issues that will relate to the ultimate annexation of the property to the town, as we discussed this afternoon. I know that Mark Truckee and myself have worked on this. We believe it's a good pre-annexation agreement. We recommend it to the council for approval.
Any questions for Tim on this one? No. Anyone in the public wish to comment on this first resolution of the year? Please use the Q&A function beginning now. You have 30 seconds. I will just reiterate at this point that this was a long road to get here, and I'm good with where we are. And that closes the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I move we pass resolution number 1, 2021, a resolution approving a pre-annexation agreement, track 2A2, Entrada at Breckenridge. Track A2, Entrada at Breckenridge.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No. Roll call, please.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you, Tim. Our final bit of legislation, Rick is going to read.
I would ask for a motion from the council to ratify the town manager signing a MOU with Summit County and the other towns in Summit County on January 7th for the distribution of funds with the state of Colorado Small Business Relief Program.
Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Just say so moved.
So right now?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right. We have planning matters, planning commission decisions from the 5th of January. Are there any call-ups this evening? No. Planning commission matters stand as presented. Report of the town manager and staff. Rick?
The only last thing I have to update you on is, we did receive an inquiry from Aaron a while back about the status on our leisure pool in the rec center. At the time when we were in level red, we were not going to open the leisure pool, but about the same time that she made the inquiry, we were moving out of red into orange, and that was kind of the trigger point that we were going to start to look at it. So staff has evaluated that. Staff is moving. There is a number of things that have to occur, including hiring new staff to come on board and have adequate people and some other operational things that have to happen. So there's a bit of a turnaround. We're targeting around February 15th, mid-February, to have the leisure pool back open in some capacity.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you use the leisure pool a lot, Aaron?
It was actually from a friend who happens to be a parent of 2 little ones.
I figured. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. Report of the mayor and council members. We had a, like I said earlier, an MMC meeting. The only other thing that came out of that was a discussion about vaccines and
well, there is going to be a change to the 5-star program, Eric. I think they're proposing, right? Did they approve that yet? So if you're a 5-star certified, they're going to give you, I believe, another 30 minutes on alcohol sales.
So till 10, you'll be able to have them on the table till 10 o'clock then?
Yeah.
That's great.
That was a
Shannon, did that get approved yet, or are they still discussing that right now? Yeah.
I had not heard that.
I think that's what's being proposed as one of the benefits. They're trying to have a few things to entice people to stay 5-star because it is extra work, right? And you're really not gaining any additional seating under it right now. So
Rick, is that from last week's 5-star meeting or from today?
that was from the MMC discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I talked to Ken Nelson, who's on that committee, I think today or yesterday, and he said that Amy wasn't up for that at this point.
Well, the other thing they're doing, Dick, is they're open. They're waiting for a proposal from Breck Restaurant Association on how we might identify fine dining and have kind of a 5-star plus, if you will, for a fine dining that could have some additional serving opportunities. So if you have ideas on how we might identify fine dining and have some other thing in place, they're waiting to hear it.
Rick, that went nowhere at our BRA meeting on Monday.
Really?
Yeah, they just didn't have.
Yeah, there's not much of an appetite from the restaurant community to do that.
Okay.
Well,
I think it's a good
just
idea,
to clarify, I think that discussion is happening at the Board of Public Health level. So on those Tuesday and Thursday meetings, I think that's where they've agreed to continue some of those discussions.
Great.
Fair enough.
Yeah, what I heard from last Thursday, I think, was Elizabeth or Amy was still concerned. She wanted to determine whether we're going to have a New Year's surge or not. And then I think once she determines that, which I'm guessing will be this week, then she would be open to it, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. That's all I had. Dick, do you have anything?
Nope.
Carol? Kelly?
I was just going to update on BCA since we have had a few meetings. They're continuing some limited programming through June, and it's mostly education based, and it's mostly out of the arts district. And then they'll, continue to sort of do activation. They're calling it the Creative Corridor, which is the arts district down through Main Street to the Riverwalk. They're looking this year. We've been talking a lot about integrating the arts, all the arts into, kind of a team atmosphere, but then also integrating with the community. So they're looking for opportunities to do that. And then we have just started some strategic planning conversations as far as programming and community needs and partnerships. So that's the background on BCA. And next week, in 2 weeks, Matt will be here to give a little bit more of an update.
Excellent.
Dick, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you got it. Thanks, Kelly.
Dennis?
Nothing at this time.
Aaron?
Yes, I don't believe we've met since the last BOSAC meeting. And during that meeting, there was a 2020 field season update where staff walked BOSAC through highlights of the 2020 field season, which included Friends of Breck volunteer events with COVID-19 procedures in place, new social distancing signs, backcountry awareness / avalanche signs, and continued maintenance on our trails network and construction of new trails. And then we also talked about the open space trails, open space plan and trails plan updates. BOSAC divided into 2 subcommittees to divvy up the review of each of the existing two plans and focus on the big picture of what's still relevant, what's outdated, what's missing, and what is our overarching philosophy. So the idea is that half the team will focus on each, and then they'll swap, and then we'll go from there. Excellent. And I'll continue to keep you updated with what the next plans are. I think it depends on what information comes out of this, but it's been really interesting because I don't know if you all have seen the plans, but it's they're not written like some of our other plans. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how to incorporate some of our newer philosophies into them. So I think it'll be good.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. All right. Anybody have any other matters this evening?
I have one. I you know, and actually it's for, is Lucy still here? No? Yeah. I sent you guys kind of a friend of mine came out here, kind of a affluent family, comes out here every year since she's a little girl, and now she's an adult with 3 kids, and came over Christmas week, and I asked her to kind of just recap her vacation, you know, with all the concerns and all the restrictions, and it was really heartening. She came away saying she was well prepared with the information, probably with the websites and the social media, and they had a great time. You know, they made reservations in advance. They ate out as much as they could. They ordered out. But at any rate, I think we're lucky. We're only down 16% for the Christmas holiday season, and I think we're lucky. I think we've produced as good an experience for our guests as we could possibly do, and a lot of it's because of the people on the staff and in the BTO. So yeah, I'm feeling encouraged, and I think so far we've got out of it as good as we could have. I won't say we got out of it lightly, but we've gotten out of it pretty good. So
Jeffrey, don't forget that 16% is just the lodging number.
Yeah,
yeah. What everybody else suffered.
Yeah, oh, without a doubt. Yeah,
part of the tax revenue that we generate. So, but yeah, that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Aaron? Oh, I thought you raised your
hand. I'm all set. I know I was thinking I was going to say something, but no, I'm good.
Aaron?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm tired.
Yeah, right.
Can we make sure we get a social equity update? I know there was a meeting today, and I know we're getting ready to have our first commission meeting, I believe, this month. And I can tell you from a staff perspective, you know, we had earmarked some money. We weren't sure. We actually set aside a fairly decent amount of money. Obviously, we need to pay the stipend and other expenses. So we're creating an account under admin, since it's really a council initiative, and we're kind of leading the staffing of that right now through Shannon's efforts. So we'll have that account set up right now. I mean, we're anticipating that everything that we do as a community will be translated to Spanish. And instead of having each department try to budget for that, we're going to probably hold that translation under one account so that we can get a better idea of what that total cost is over the course of a year in doing that. And so we'll, you know, those are just kind of some of the little behind the scenes logistics that we're working through, you know, as we forge ahead on this. So.
Excellent.
Yeah,
that's great.
Other updates you guys on with regards to social equity?
You know, we had a great meeting with Dr. Tyler from the Equity Project today to prepare for our listening session. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I'll leave some of the other updates for Aaron and Carol.
Sure. Something else, Shannon sent out emails to all of the social equity commissions about the first meeting, and Haley put together a great email with a lot of resources so that people will be able to read a little bit before the first meeting and get some common language between everybody, which I think is really interesting. Carol?
And other than that, we'll have the community-wide listening session on Wednesday, the 27th from 6 to 7. So shortly, Haley will be putting out communications for community members to join. And again, on this kind of path to advance social equity, this is one step in a non-linear journey. And we're just really excited. We'll have our first commission meeting next week.
Awesome. Great job, guys.
And everybody has that invite for the listening session, right? If not, everybody should come. Everybody should come and
Okay.
listen.
Can we get that invite? Make sure we have it.
Yeah, so you don't have it yet. Once we have the platform all settled, then we'll make sure that we get that onto your calendars.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon.
And one
Sorry
other
for
thing-
jumping that, Shannon.
Oh, no, that's okay. One other thing I wanted to mention that Haley's been working on is we're working with the vendor that creates our website. And if you've been on the county website, you've probably seen, you get this box that pops up and asks you if you want to see the site in Spanish or English. Ours won't look exactly like that, but they're installing the software now, and fairly soon we should have that something similar on our site, so folks can review our site in Spanish as well as English. So we're really excited about that.
Excellent. Anything else this evening, gang? All right. I'm going to gavel this meeting done. It's a good start to 2021. Thanks for everything. Have a great night, everyone.
Yeah.